Sei gesund, and welcome to the Disenfranchised Podcast. We're the number one podcast about those franchises of ones and those films that fancy themselves full-fledged franchises before falling flat on their face after the first film. All other podcasts on the topic are number two or lower. I am your host, Stephen Foxworthy. God gave me a gift. I podcast well. I podcast very well. And joining me, as always, is my co-host who dresses in the manner of a male prostitute. It's Tucker. Hey, Tucker.
Rage subsiding. Hi, Stephen.
I mean, better rage subsiding than testicles rising, I guess, right?
I guess, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, how's it going, man?
It's going, man. I should mention that our good buddy Brett Wright is he's stormed off, and God knows we expect him to storm back anytime now. But we wish him a speedy return when he does return. Tucker, this has been an episode that I have been waiting for so long.
Same.
For so long. This has been kind of one of those, like, put a pin in it because I really want to cover this one, but I don't want to, like, cover it right out of the gate because then we're going to run out of good shit to cover, and I want to know that I have this one in my back pocket. But
yeah,
it's time. Full disclosure, we had a guest prep for this episode, and it fell through at the last minute. He wasn't feeling well. I'm actually recovering from something right now. You might be able to tell from my voice.
And my throat's starting to hurt.
So you'll probably be in this boat next week because
maybe
about this time last week was when it started happening for me too. So
shit, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Hope not.
But God, Tucker, I'm so excited to talk. This is a movie I've loved for so long. And for all the shit I get on this podcast, mostly from you and Brad about being a dorky film snob, dorky film snobs cannot love this movie as much as I love this movie. God, I love this movie so much. Tucker, what movie are we talking about today?
We are talking about 1999's
1999.
Mystery
Men from 1999, directed by the great Kinka Usher, written by Neil Cuthbert, based on the comics by Bob Burden, and
Flaming
starring
Carrot Head comics.
Yes,
Right,
Flaming Carrot. And starring gotta work myself up for this one.
Yeah, it's a big list.
Hank Azaria, William H. Macy, Ben Stiller, Jeffrey Rush, Janine Garofalo, Kel Mitchell, Paul Reubens, the late, great Paul Reubens. We will do a whole sidebar on Paul Reubens. Don't worry about it. Greg Kinnear, Wes Studi, Claire Forlani, Susie Eddie Izzard, Tom Waits, Lena Olin, Artie Lang, Louise Lasser, Ricky Jay, Jennifer Lewis, Praz Michelle, Ned Bellamy, Joel McCrary, The Goody Mob, Corbin Blue, Philip Bolden, Ricky Rockman, Michael Bay, Mark Mothersbaugh, Dane Cook,
dude, that's my boy.
Doug Jones, Dana Gould, Monet Mazer. What a cast, Tucker. What a picture.
I agree with both of those, but I'd like to amend your Goody Mob section because it is worth noting that CeeLo Green was and still is a part of the Goody Mob.
He is, yes. It's Cameron Gipp, Willie Knighton Jr., CeeLo Green, and Robert Barnett, known as Big Gipp, Cujo, CeeLo, and Timo.
And anybody who's not familiar with the Goody Mob, they came up in the 90s alongside Outkast and other groups from the Atlanta area, and they formed a super group, much like the Wu-Tang Clan, called the Dungeon Family. And I definitely recommend checking out the Dungeon Family's one and only record. I don't remember what it's called, but just like look up Dungeon Family on your streaming service and listen to that one record, specifically the song Rollin'. And you're gonna have a good time. Also, Outkast is rad, Goody Mob is rad. Like, all those guys in that collective are rad on their own. So
holy shit, this is, well, there's first gen and apparently there's second gen.
Yes.
But their one album is called Even in Darkness, and it came out in 2001.
It's so good. The thing that's great about all of these groups is that they have such a unique sound, but they blend the same sorts of genres, and they have the same kind of sensibilities. So to put them all together, it's fantastic. There's a lot of slow jams, old school funk kind of stuff, mixed with like high concept hip hop. Like, Atlanta was where it was at in the 90s. Like, I'm a big West Coast guy when it comes to hip hop, you know, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Warren G, shit like that, Ice Cube,
Sure, sure.
NWA. But Atlanta was a hotbed in those days. Everything that
Sounds
came
like
out
it,
of
man.
Atlanta in the mid to late 90s is pure gold.
It's like Detroit in the 60s, man. Just kind of something
Pretty
about
much.
it.
Yeah, dude. Dungeon Family is the Motown of Atlanta for sure.
Right on. Yeah, I looked over that list of performers, and holy shit, that's like a veritable who's who. Like, this movie is a veritable who's who of like alt 90s comedy. The Dungeon Family is like a veritable who's who of 90s hip hop and R&B. Like, that's really impressive. That's an impressive assembly there. So yeah, right on. Mystery Men, Tucker.
Yes.
God, this is the one, man. This is a
It's a big one.
It's a big one for me. God, we could go for hours on this movie, and I have a feeling we might. There's a very good possibility, even without a guest, even without our third host, we might go for a while on this one. We really might, because God, I really, really, really love this movie.
And there's so much to love about it, I think. And there's so much
And
to
to
say
talk
about it
about it,
too.
yeah.
And not even like just stating our opinions, but there's so much backstory to this movie happening and
Mm-hmm.
the making of this film.
Exactly.
It's a wonder that it's even worth watching, honestly, based on the production history of it. It should be a shitty movie. It should. It should be shit.
Yeah. And look, I would not call this a good movie, but I will call this a great movie. Because despite the fact that there are clear flaws in this movie that I could point out and show you, like, look, this not good. Like inconsistent tone, green director, like all this shit that you could point to. Everyone here seems to be having a really fun time. They're working off of each other very well, despite doing like 5 different styles of comedy within the same film. And it is such a well observed parody of a genre that had yet to take off, that it feels like it was a good 20 years ahead of its time, honestly.
At least. Yeah. Like this is the boys of the 90s.
Mystery Men walked so that Deadpool and the boys could run.
Absolutely. They crawled so those motherfuckers could walk and skip.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Like, Mystery Men died for your sins.
Absolutely.
Boys and Deadpool. Like, is basically what happened. Because in this movie, make no mistake, this movie died. And it, like Bruce Willis, it died hard. But God, it's so, and I loved it from the moment I saw this movie. I think it was in the early 2000s. I think it would have been in high school. I think it was my buddy Jeff who introduced me to Josie and the Pussycats. And it was one of those similar situations where it was like,
that really tracks.
You have to watch this movie. Like, you have to see this. And I was like, okay. And we watched it, and I was like, this is it. This is exactly my brand of humor. This is absolutely the kind of movie I want to watch. I love this so much, and I've only grown to love it more over time.
Absolutely. It's a movie that really holds up. I think the older you get and the more you watch it, the more you can kind of see the cracks in it. But honestly, they're beautiful fucking cracks.
They are.
Like, I mean, the more I learn about this movie and the more I watch this film, which I probably watch it probably once a year, once every couple years, whenever the mood strikes me, or when I remember about it. Every time I watch it, I don't want to say a completely new experience, but I feel like I walk away differently than I did each time that I watch it. And it's always positive. It's always positive. And I actually saw this. Go ahead.
No, I always have a good time. This is what I was going to say. I always have a good time with it.
I actually saw this at the movie theater in 1999.
You succumbed to that ubiquitous advertising campaign for this movie.
It was the cast. I was way into the main cast at the time. Ben Stiller. I was way into Ben Stiller because of like Cable Guy and the Ben Stiller show. I think Greg the Bunny. I think I'd seen a little bit of that.
Reality Bites.
I'd seen a lot. Reality Bites. Yeah, my sister was way into that movie because she's a couple years older than me, so like that was right up her alley when it came out. Um, but yeah, Ben Stiller, those early years of Ben Stiller, he was kind of popping for a certain audience, and I was that audience.
Right
Janine
on.
Garofalo, I
Hell
had a
yeah.
crush on from like the moment I saw her.
Oh, so
Not
you
to
were
say
alive in the 90s, right on.
I was alive in the 90s, and that's not to say that I only value her in an objective way. I think she's also a fantastic actress, and as far as I can tell, a fantastic human being. But back then, I just had the hots for her, dude. I just
I
really
mean,
I
look,
think it's because she was pretty, but also she would tell you how it is, dude. She don't fuck around. Jean Garofalo does not fuck around.
no.
She's never had a fuck to give.
Mm-mm.
Never has she had one. She's never
That
owned
is
a fuck.
that has been her entire persona, and I love her for it. No, I love Janine Garofalo. Like, I don't remember my first exposure to Janine Garofalo, but I remember just being like, okay, like, it,
Yeah. She's got a vibe for
the
sure.
angry Jewish chick. Like, I love
Yeah.
this. Like, this is
Yes.
absolutely a mood, as the kids say,
Also
and
William
I'm
H.
here for it.
Macy. I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah. I also William H. Macy, I was a big fan of from obviously Fargo and what was
Boogie
the
Nights,
movie? Oh yeah, Boogie Nights, but there was an independent movie he did that came out around the same time as
Magnolia.
no, it was a little bit less remembered than that. That's why I can't fucking remember it. Yeah, I'm gonna go down that rabbit hole because I have to mention this film because though I can't remember what it's called,
When
I
did it come out?
remember it would have been around the same time. It probably would have been after Fargo, but not much further after. Where is it?
We'll
Okay, he was in
see.
Psycho. I remember he was Arbogast in Psycho, but that movie, I have a complicated relationship with it. He was in Pleasantville. Jerry and Tom was a movie that I completely forgot about until this moment, but it's not the one I was thinking of. What the fuck was it called? Wow, maybe I skipped timelines again because I don't see anything that looks familiar. What the fuck was it? Was it
Ghosts of
Air Force One?
Mississippi. Yeah, he was
Oh,
Major Caldwell in Air Force One,
I mean,
apparently.
obviously, I just looked at that, but like, what
Boogie
the hell
Nights,
am I
Wag the
thinking of?
Dog,
Hmm.
Down Periscope. I love him in Down. And also, I think my first exposure to William H. Macy was 1995's Mr. Holland's Opus.
Oh yeah, you're the audience for that movie.
I was in 1995. My mom took me to the
Sure.
theater to see that movie.
Fuck yeah, that tracks. That seems like that would definitely happen. I don't know what the fuck movie I'm thinking of, so just
I don't
scratch
either,
that from the
man.
record, I guess. But I don't
I mean, I
remember
know
him
you're
being in
probably a
Benny
big
and
fan of
June
Tall
either.
Tale.
I'm a big fan of Benny and
Oleana.
June, but I haven't seen that motherfucker in a long time, so I don't even remember him being in it. No, actually, I do remember him being in Benny and June.
I've never seen Benny and June. Should I see Benny and June?
Oh, I don't know if it holds up. I'm not sure. It's a specific kind of movie that worked at a specific time, and I'm not sure if the sensibilities
I mean, I'm reading
kind of.
I'm reading the synopsis here, the blurb on IMDb, and I'm thinking maybe not.
I don't know. It's
A mentally ill young woman finds her love in an eccentric man who models himself after Buster Keaton.
This is where I found Buster Keaton was Benny and June. Seeing Benny and
Okay.
June is what like introduced me to Buster Keaton. So it definitely gets credit for that. And I do really love this movie and it's I feel like it's kind of a 50-50. It's either going to work better now or it's going to fall flat.
Hey, listeners, let us know how well does Benny and June hold up? Disenfranchedpod@gmail.com.
Because
Should Steven watch Benny and June? That's the question for this week.
the whole deal is that Mary Stuart Masterson, I don't know if I'd call her mentally ill. I would say she's probably on the spectrum. They didn't have that word back then, but she was definitely autistic.
Right.
And Johnny Depp was probably a little lower. His character was a little lower level. Maybe he was like Asperger's level. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he was definitely on the spectrum too. So I don't think this description is very good because I feel like if you're gonna call her mentally ill, uh, then you gotta. He's not just eccentric either. This dude is out there, man. He's at least, and I don't mean that in a bad way to anyone who's on the spectrum, but it's definitely obvious that he's somewhere on there. he's a little more high functioning than she is in the regard of being able to, live, like, take care of themselves. But I don't know if I agree with that description, and I think you should see it.
Okay.
I don't know if you're looking at the cast, but
I took a glance. Yeah, I
yeah,
took a
dude,
glance.
yeah, dude, it's I'm gonna,
And
what we should,
it's directed by the guy who did Christmas Vacation. So
yeah, you love that guy,
sure
I
do.
guess, right?
God,
Yeah.
Jeremiah S. Chechik, one of
Oh
my
man,
favorite filmmakers of all time.
always talking about that guy. I can't get you to shut up about that dude. Like, Jesus,
Try and
man,
stop me.
stop talking about that dude for real. No, I think that you should watch it. I think that we should both watch it and do a disenfranchised at the movies Patreon special. Steven and Tucker and Brett, if he's into it, watch Benny and June.
You know what we should do? We should just do a commentary track on Benny and June.
Okay. Okay.
And you should
But
do like all the research on like the movie and stuff, and then Brett and I watch it for the first time, and you can hear us react live. Assuming Brett hasn't seen it, maybe he has. I don't know.
the only thing that has survived from that movie is the
Johnny Depp's
500
career
Miles
somehow.
song. No, the 500 Miles song, dude. That was
Oh,
for this
from the
soundtrack.
Proclaimers.
Yeah, dude. That was
Speaking
for
of
this soundtrack. That
speaking
was
of
the whole theme of
songs,
this movie.
Speaking of songs written specifically for soundtracks that no one remembers were written for that soundtrack specifically, this is the movie, not Shrek. This is the movie that gave us Smash Mouth's All Star.
And it's the only thing I will ever say negative about this film, and it's the only thing I can never forgive this film for, because Smash Mouth is music for people who hate music and possibly maybe even hate themselves. I don't know. It's just such garbage. I can't imagine any self-respecting person enjoying any moment of Smash Mouth.
With an opinion like that, Tucker, you might as well be walking on the sun. That's all I got to say.
You son of a bitch.
No, and the music video, like the cast of this movie is all over the music video. And do you know who directed the music video, Tucker?
Was it the Kinka person?
It was not Kinka Usher. It was a director who went on to make many more films than Kinka Usher. This is Kinka Usher's only film. So we have now covered the entire filmography of Kinka Usher. No, it is a little filmmaker called Mick G.
Oh, Mick G. I really like those Charlie's Angels movies. And I really like Supernatural, and like, not for nothing, hot take, but I thought Terminator Salvation was kind of the shit if you detach it from the rest of the series.
We're going to cover it on this podcast one day.
I bought that Blu-ray because I like that movie so much.
Right. Oh, so you're the one. Okay.
Not as part of the series, but as its own thing.
Well, they were trying to make it its own. It was basically going to be like a prequel spinoff and launch its own trilogy.
Please, I wish they would have, because I loved that movie.
And then that lighting guy dropped a light or walked through the back of Christian Bale's shot in the middle of a take, and someone recorded his response, and that movie did not survive.
Look, Christian Bale needed a Snickers, man. That's all, man. That's all.
You're not when you're hungry, Christian Bale.
And, sometimes, especially on movies like that are effects heavy and you're on location and stuff, I'm not making excuses for the guy because he was an outright prick. In that, I remember that he was an outright prick. I'm just saying, like, we've all kind of been there. Probably.
Well, and apparently the guy he's yelling at, like, that was something that he just did. Like, he just, like, no regard for the performances and the performers, like, just would. And as a performer, I'm like, dude, like, you gotta give a little and take a little. And if something's not right in the middle of the shot, you wait till the end of the take and then you fix it. You don't, walk through the middle of a fucking take to go change a light because, they can shoot it again. Like, particularly when it's something incredibly emotional like that. I get Bale's frustration. I'm not saying what he did was right. I'm also not saying I would have reacted any differently. But, like, oof.
I mean, on the spectrum of terrible things that actors could do, like, he's not sexually assaulting anyone, so
could do / have done.
Yeah, big win.
Right.
It's just a drop in the pool. It's nothing
like yeah. Remember when like that was enough to spark a controversy? Now it's Now there are actual controversies that get buried somehow. Like it. Oh God, I hate it here.
Yeah. And with that, let's do the plot in 60.
Boom, 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 boom. No, Mystery Men. No, I love Mystery Men. Let's do a little background on the property
Sure.
itself before we
Yeah, yeah.
launch in. So, Mystery Men, as you mentioned earlier, created by Bob Burden as background characters in Flaming Carrot comics, published by Dark Horse Comics. Flaming Carrot was itself a parody
Published
of.
by a lot of different comics companies, honestly. That
At the
property
time, it was
spans so
Dark Horse,
much.
but yeah.
Yeah.
At the time, it was Dark Horse, which honestly, Dark Horse had a pretty good track record at the movies at this point.
Well, they done Spawn at that point. No, that was Image. Sorry,
That's
Spawn
Image,
is
yep.
Image.
But you've got the two that they had,
MIB?
Men in Black in 97, but before that, it was The Mask in 94.
Oh yeah, I have those trade paperbacks. The
Mhm.
3 that are good.
But like those were both based on Dark Horse comic, and so I gave in a very early episode, I think it was episode 5 of this pod. It was like our Constantine episode. I did like a run through of like the history of comic book movies up to like in and around the late 90s, early 2000s. And kind of did like a breakdown of what comic book movies were like. And so 1999 is the wasteland. Like there is this 3-year period between 1997 and 2000 where comic book movies exist in this kind of nebulous wasteland between Batman Forever and He Who Must Not Be Named's X-Men. Joel Schumacher's Batman and Robin and He Who Must Not Be Named's X-Men.
Well, I mean, I would say Blade kind of started it.
No, there are two.
That was the
two movies
that
in that wasteland.
And then yeah,
there are 2 movies in that wasteland, and it's Blade and it's this, pretty much. And Blade hits really well, becomes its own franchise. This one dies on the vine. And I think a big part of the reason why it does is that well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay. Because I do want to go back. Like in the 80s, 2 things happened that pretty much make comic book movies a hot Hollywood commodity. One, 1987, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. And just the rampant outright popularity of that property, those action figures, that merchandise, that cartoon,
the film,
those films, like it was everywhere.
JK, continue.
Sure. Well, I think we talked about this last week, Tucker.
1.5. There's 1.5. Second one's okay.
And we talked about one even later than that last week.
I have no recollection.
Convenient. But then in 1989 you get Tim Burton's Batman. So the late 80s are kind of this weird time for comic book movies. The lesson that Hollywood learns from the Ninja Turtles, weirdly, is let's adapt indie comics specifically. So you get things like The Tick turning into a TV show, things like The Mask getting The Crow, like all this shit getting rushed out into production. Like that is the result of that. It's indie comics.
And so a lot of those have become classics since then.
They have.
To be fair, but still, continue.
No, you're absolutely right. But then the lesson, weirdly, the lesson that Hollywood learns from Batman is, and I've talked about this on this podcast before, and I think it's the fucking weirdest thing, because I think I mentioned this on the Dick Tracy episode, aka the episode where I just talk for like 90 minutes while Brett occasionally chimes in. Hollywood's big lesson from Batman was, hey, let's take old pulp comics from like the 30s and 40s and let's make those into movies.
How do you get that from Batman's success?
Batman was a newspaper strip in the 30s and 40s. I actually had, when I was younger,
and look, I get that.
Collected edition of those Sunday strips.
Like, so is Spider-Man. So is a lot of them, but they're not comic strip characters. They're comic book characters. They started out that way. They endure that way. But I think have always been a side thing that aren't even part of the main continuity. That's just such a weird take.
The Joker first appears in the strips.
Well, I believe that, and I think I actually knew that. But it doesn't fucking matter, man.
But here's the thing. It's all of these Hollywood executives who in the late 80s, early 90s grew up in the 40s and 50s. And so they're looking back at all the things that they loved about comics when they were a kid and saying, well, this is what the kids are into now. So that's why we get Dick Tracy and the Shadow and the Phantom And
I
like
know that's why all the shit from when I was a kid is just like being farted out because people my age are in charge of everything and it fucking sucks.
exactly. No, I mean it's a cyclical nostalgia cycle is really what it is. Like I'm waiting for the kid that was really into Dick Tracy to call up Warren Beatty and try to get another one of those motherfuckers made.
Let's do it. I'm into it.
Well, you know what Warren Beatty does? And he did it like a couple years ago too. Every time the rights to Dick Tracy are about to leave, he'll make like a special or something with Dick Tracy in it to try to like re-up the rights. And it works
Yeah,
every
yeah,
fucking
yeah.
time. So
Yeah,
he
like the
did.
Roger Corman Fantastic Four. You keep the rights by putting something out there, even if it doesn't fucking go out there at all. Even if it's a tax write-off, you did it.
But they're TV special. He does them as TV specials. The cinematographer for the first one is fucking 3-time Academy Award winning cinematographer Emmanuel Lubetsky. And
I might even know that name.
It's Warren Beatty and Leonard Maltin sitting at a table. Warren Beatty in character as Dick Tracy.
Yeah.
And Leonard Maltin sitting at a table talking about the legacy of Dick Tracy, the character. And Dick Tracy's talking about him as though he was the actual person all this is based on. There's this whole bit that he does like, you look great for your age. How have you aged so well? And he's like, can I tell you a secret? It's pomegranates. And he does like a tight 5 on pomegranates. And it's fucking weird. It's on YouTube. Like you can go watch it. Like go watch it. It's bizarre.
Very similar to the writer of Buckaroo Banzai.
Mm-hmm.
How he treats that shit. That's wild. I do want to see that now just for that connection because I think it's great when people kind of buy into the mythos of their own fiction and sort of just present that as truth. But even though we all know it's bullshit, like it's still really cool to see and like really fun to be a part of.
But he did it again, like just like a year or two ago. Like he did it again, and it was all over Zoom because of pandemic restrictions and shit. But it's the same kind of thing. It's him and fucking Leonard Maltin, but again, him in character as Dick Tracy. And I think at one point there's a 3-way call between him as Dick Tracy, Leonard Maltin, and then the actor Warren Beatty at one point.
Wow.
Like it's
fun.
Fucking insane. Like
just get Al Pacino in there and you'll just have like you'll be good.
You'd have to send fucking makeup artists to make him up like Big Boy Caprice. God, though that I love Dick Tracy. Like that movie is amazing, but like it boggles my mind that was Hollywood's takeaway. But so this is part of that like indie comic. This is I think the last gasp of that like indie comic boom, because the comic book genre is essentially dead in '97. Like, and what this movie does, and it does it by casting a director who is very much a part of like who does commercials specific. Like he was a commercial guy to start with. He does this movie, hates it so fucking much he goes right back to before the production's even over. He's like, I'm going back to commercials. Fuck it, I don't care. I hate this so much. And he's still a very successful commercial director to this day.
He's the Got Milk guy, and he's also the Taco Bell Chihuahua guy.
He is the guy that the reason we hero Taco Bell is because of Kinka Usher.
Can I tell you,
the reason Viva Gorditas happened is because of Kinka Usher.
All of my coworkers are like half my age.
Mm-hmm.
I work at a campground, so like, I'm pretty much the only adult there at any given time.
Yeah, it makes sense.
They're all like half my age, and I had to explain to them what the Taco Bell Chihuahua was. I had to pull up the commercial on YouTube. I'm like, yo quiero Taco Bell. They're like, oh, what the fuck are you talking about, dude?
No, dude, they were infants if they existed at all when those commercials were out.
Yes.
You know what I remember?
I have tattoos older than some of my coworkers.
I believe that. You know what I remember is going to fucking Taco Bell, getting the gorditas, and getting myself a big ass glass of Fruitopia.
Yeah, dude. Oh, I miss Fruitopia.
There is no more like late 90s, early 2000s bullshit than Taco Bell, like getting the Baja Gordita and a fucking glass of Fruitopia. Like that was the shit. Thank you, Kinka Usher.
I still get down on a cheesy gordita crunch from time to time. Of course, I replace the beef with potatoes, and it's not as bad as it sounds. Actually, it's really good.
That doesn't sound too bad, actually.
Yeah, dude, it's real good. Real good.
But yeah, but this is the Mystery Men is kind of the last vestige, and it is the parody. And generally speaking, this is not always the case, but generally speaking, once the parody hits, the genre is dead.
It's got to be. Where else can you go from there?
Well, exactly. Nowadays, that's not true because Deadpool is absolutely a parody of comic book movies, and that genre shows absolutely no sign of slowing down. Like, it's all we watch these days. Like, it's fucking insane.
Yeah, it kind of seeps into like the regular comic book movies.
Exactly, like
point.
It's just one of the others, right? But like this was seen in a lot of ways as the death knell of the comic book movie. And then the very next year, He Who Must Not Be Named decides to make X-Men, and it kind of relaunched that. And then 2 years later, you get Spider-Man, and we're back to the races. Like, it's a slow start. It's like a sputtering start. You get it's Blade, Sputter, Mystery Men, Clunk, X-Men, ooh, Spider-Man, and then even the Hulk can't bring it down, and then you're just boom, 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 and it just keeps. Like, I think there were a few. I think the early 2000s are a rough time for comic book movies because
there's some real gems in there, though.
There are. I subscribe, and again, this is something that this is a term that I've coined based on something I read that Neil Gaiman said once called the Gaiman principle, where he basically says the truer you are to the source material that you're adapting, the more accepted your film will be, your adaptation will be. And this movie is not faithful to the comics at all. In fact, I think a lot of those early 2000s movies weren't. Well, and I think that's where there's problems.
Well, I mean, that is a problem, but I think the ones that hit, and specifically Mystery Men, is that a good adaptation, no matter what it does, it has to present the same tone. It's just like He Who Shall Not Be Named X-Men.
Yes.
Like, you don't have the costumes, there's not a big world of superheroes, several things have changed because it's a different media, but it stays true to the tone. And I think that's what Mystery Men gets so well, because I read Flaming Carrot comics back in the day, and I've read some of the trades since then. And like, despite the wildly fluctuating comedic styles in this film, it still does stick to the basic tone of the comic. It's about blue collar guys that they're not the best superheroes. They've got like mid-level powers or no powers at all.
Right.
And they're fighting guys, and they're doing it because that they feel like that's what they need to do. So I think it does actually stay true to the tone and the original intent of the comic.
Yeah, I should rephrase. It's not true to the letter of the comic. Very not true to the letter, but very true to the spirit of the comic. Like, there are only, from what I understand, there are only 3 characters in the movie that appear in the comics, and they're all very different. It's
with the exception sorry, go ahead.
No, it's the Shoveler, it's Mr. Furious, and it's the Spleen.
Yes, and then you have a 4th that was never part of the Mystery Men, but the Sphinx was an old comic book character in the 30s and 40s.
Right.
And the company that owned the rights to the Sphinx went defunct in the 50s, and he became public domain. And that's why he's in this motherfucking movie.
And good for him. There is the character of the Invisible.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
Because there's so much to say.
And that's just it. That's the problem, right? Like, there's so much to say, and we both love this movie so much that this is pretty much going to be us fighting pretty much this whole fucking episode.
I'm going to do my best, Steven. I'm trying so hard.
I am also going to try. I'm probably going to fail so much. Hey,
we'll
if you're
patient with each other,
if you get pissed off about podcast hosts talking over one another, this might not be the episode for you guys. Honestly, this might not be the podcast for you, but please stick around. We love you, and we love your downloads. Please and thank you. But you're right. No, and I had read that had come up in my research for this episode. Another thing, the Invisible Boy he did not appear in the comic, but he was created by Bob Burden. It was a drunken joke at a Hollywood party.
Oh, yes.
That the producers heard and liked so much, they just included it in the movie. Like, I don't know.
Based on a drunken sentence fragment by is what the credit should have read. Yes.
Should have read, yeah. Absolutely. But like the Bowler and the Blue Raja, And like
You said it wrong. It's the Blue Raja.
the Blue Raja.
There
Granted,
you
I
go.
don't wear much blue, and I speak in an English accent, but if you know your history, it really does make sense. The point is, your son's a limey fork finger, mother, hard cheese to swallow, but there it is. What will the Bridge Club say? God,
Yes,
I love this movie.
His monologue on colonialism is especially wild.
No, Dad, he is neither a commie nor a fruit. Honestly, I think you could do a queer reading of this film through the Blue Raja, because that scene where his mom finds him pilfering the silverware reads like a coming out scene. It
Oh yeah,
reads
and
like
she's
a
so
guy,
supportive.
and
It is the best case scenario coming out scene, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful.
it is. And even the thing she says where I was saving these for your wedding, but from the looks of things, that's a long way off. Like, gay marriage was not a thing in 1999. Like,
Yep.
you could absolutely do a queer reading of this movie, and I think that's really, again, that's really smart and really sharp and really fun. That
Well, and
you
even
can
some of
have shit like that in this movie.
even some of the criminal gangs are a bit queer coded, I'd say.
The fact that you've got Susie Izzard as the lead of the Disco Boys
The
is
Disco Boys.
and she does
Okay. Her American accent in that is I've never heard her
unhinged.
speaking anything but that natural British,
Mm-hmm.
and it's spot on. That's why for years I didn't even know that was her.
Yeah,
For years.
and she does an almost pitch perfect recreation of John Travolta's Saturday Night Fever dance to the Bee Gees in that early scene, and it's so fucking good. Like, she is my favorite stand-up. I have gone on record so many times as saying that Susie Izzard is my favorite. She's actually coming to Chicago in October, and I am like, if I had money in my bank account right now, I would be buying tickets for
Wait a
my
minute,
partner
what?
and I to go see her.
When in October?
Let me Google this. Everyone's
I
favorite
gotta
part of
see.
the show. Stephen
Well,
Googling shit in real
I can
time.
explain the context of my question while you Google it. The camping season here, where I live and work, ends the second week of October. Pretty much any time between then and the starting of the season in May, I can take a vacation and come to Indy or Chicago or whatever.
Monday, October 2nd.
Fuck you, man. Well, damn it. I'll get you some tickets for your birthday or something. See you.
I mean, yeah, remember, I'm gonna see if she's coming to New England anytime. Like Atlanta, Tennessee, North Carolina.
It's hard to get anybody to come up here outside of Boston, and I just really don't.
I was gonna say
desire to be in Boston.
She's gonna be in Medford on September 16th and 17th.
Like, I'd much
and
rather.
It looks like that's
in
the
Chicago,
closest she's gonna come. Yeah,
which is weird because Chicago is arguably a rougher city than Boston. I don't know. In some ways, they're about the same. Depends on who you ask.
I was gonna say it's
so much more. I feel so much more comfortable in Chicago. I think just because I've been there so many times over the years. I grew up like 3 hours away.
Right. Yeah, we both did. Yeah. I mean, it's the nearest big city to where we grew up, right? So,
well, I've had friends like that I've met over the years that live there, so I'm constantly visiting there and hanging out with friends and stuff. So, yeah,
well, and one of the reasons
I guess.
No, yeah, I get it. Like,
I've never even driven through Boston. It just scares me because of what I've seen on TV, man.
I've been to Boston a couple of times. I have one of my very best friends lives in Boston.
People tell me I need to see the cemeteries down there because apparently they're fucking wild.
The New England cemeteries are honestly, if you go
the ones up here. Go ahead. We're doing it again. We're not even talking about Mystery Men.
God,
sorry,
what is our problem? No, the ones in Salem, Mass, are really incredible.
Word, I'll bet.
My ex and I went to Massachusetts all the time. Like we loved it up there all the time. We went twice, but still, like we would stop in Boston to visit friends, and then we'd head out to the Cape. And then on the way to the Cape, we'd go like an hour out of our way and go to Salem. And Salem's so cool. It's very tourist heavy, but very cool. Apparently October is the time you need to go, but like, there are a couple friends of the show that live up Massachusetts way, which had I started the show the last time I visited, I would have probably looked them up. But friend of the show, Mike Snoonian, and friend of the show, Kat Scully, are both Massachusetts residents. So, and I know Kat usually hits the Salem Horror Fest in October to like peddle her art and her books. So, absolutely need to get up there sometime in October to see her and get like my Halloween Salem fix. But yeah.
Steven's going back to Massachusetts. Yeah, thank
But
you.
yeah,
Thank you. I'll be here all
but no,
week.
one of the reasons I was kind of bummed our guest wasn't able to join us tonight is our guest is the person who introduced me to Susie Izzard.
Oh no.
So like I was looking
We
forward.
might, if we can get a hold of them to come in at some other time, we might do like a Patreon something, or maybe a special episode or something where we just kind of talk to them about this movie and just kind of let them go on about it.
Yeah,
Because
maybe.
that's
Yeah,
a unique perspective, like that's a whole, you got history with that.
yeah,
That's
absolutely.
rad.
Like she had seen, or he had seen her do Dress to Kill when he was like in high school, and was like, "Do you know Dress to Kill? You need to see Dress to Kill," and introduced me to Dress to Kill, and I was like, "Fuck, this is amazing! Like
Well,
this is
that's
so
the one.
funny."
Like that's the one you show people. Like out
Yeah,
of all of them, I think that's the most accessible for
and
sure.
so many of them are on streaming right now. Like so many of her specials are on streaming right now that I'm like, and so many that I haven't seen because I stopped watching around Circle or Sexy. So I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I need to go back and like watch all of these that she's done in like the last 15 years that I haven't caught.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge Susie Izzard fan. Love her to death. Would love to see her when she is in Chicago in October. But yeah, God. And this is probably the first movie that I think I saw that she was in, and of course did not realize that she was a stand-up. And I think it was Dan who said, "Oh, no, it's one of the Disco Boys," and I was like, "Wait, really?" And then I watched the stand-up, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I guess that's her. That's awesome."
Yeah, I have a similar reveal for someone. I didn't realize it was them in this movie. I didn't realize Artie Lang was in this movie.
Yeah,
I've seen this movie probably, I don't want to say 100 times, but probably somewhere around 60 to 75 times I've seen this movie in my lifetime since it
yeah.
came out. And until this viewing,
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea that he's the bad guy at the beginning in the
He's
opening
Big
scene,
Red.
right?
He's the leader of the
I
Red
had no
Eyes. Yeah,
idea. And I can
I
spot an
mean,
Artie Lang from a mile away.
the voice is
How
what
did I
gave it
not
away to
see this?
me. Yeah, like the voice is what gave it away to me. But like, I mean, half his face is covered, and he's got those giant goggles, like with the red glowing in them, that had to have been fucking so uncomfortable as fuck to wear.
I'll bet.
And I know Artie Lang talks a lot about all the shitty movies that he's done, and I think this is the one that he's like is probably the worst one.
He was great in Dirty Work though, with Norm Macdonald. But anyway,
Haven't seen that one either.
you should. It's great in a
Fair enough.
'90s raunchy comedy kind of way,
Right?
in a
Yeah.
Fairly Brothers kind of way.
Speaking of a genre that has not aged particularly
Right,
well.
it doesn't, but some of them, have a lot less offensive stuff in them than others, and they still kind of hold up.
Yeah, Half Baked was another one that a lot of my friends really liked when I was in high school.
Oh, I liked that movie too.
But yeah,
I probably been about 10 years since I've seen that. I'm not sure if it's still it held up 10 years ago, but I'm not sure if it will now.
well, and Dave Chappelle being an outspoken turf is kind of an unfortunate turn of events. But yeah,
Yeah, damn it, Dave.
I'm not sure Jim
What's
Brewer's
going on?
politics are particularly great
Oh
either.
no, fuck Jim Brewer. I never even gave a fuck about Jim Brewer though, but me and Dave
No,
Chappelle were
you know
boys,
what?
like,
No one did.
right? Like
Jim
it
Brewer
makes me
began and ended with Goat Boy.
but Go Boy was the shit though. For mid '90s SNL, Go Boy was where it was. You got Mango up in that mug too.
I hated Mango.
Like,
I did not
you
get
hated
Mango.
Mango?
I did not like Mango.
Such as Mango.
Can
I
you hold a
love
moonbeam
Mango.
in your hand? No, such as with Mango. I didn't get it. Like it didn't.
But with John Goodman and David Duchovny.
I know. I saw that one. I didn't. I was just like, this is going right over my head.
No.
Another Chris Kattan character that I just did not care for. Mr. Peepers. Did not like Mr. Peepers.
I feel like there's a 50-50 split between the population of people who for them Chris Kattan really slaps, and for the other half, it's not. You might be in that other half. You might be in the latter half.
You know what I do like Chris Kattan in though?
Monkey Bone.
Future episode of this podcast, Monkey Bone. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh wow. He
we
is
are
really good in that.
we are 100% going to cover Monkey Bone on this podcast one day.
Well, I mean, that's great because it's on my Vudu, so we can all watch it for relatively free. I paid for it at one point, but it's paid for
Right.
itself by now because I've watched it several times. So.
I mean, we could have done, had we not already done Who Framed Roger Rabbit, we could have done a really cool mini series of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Cool World, and Monkey Bone, like that animated world inhabited by real people trilogy that came out in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I've seen Cool World as well. I haven't seen it since it came out. I didn't really
Cool
like
World
it then.
is bad. Cool World is I watched it during the pandemic.
But it's your Brad Pitt.
God. It is Brad Pitt, but it is not. It's not Brad Pitt dialed in. It's also Gabriel Byrne, who I love, and Kim Basinger, like from LA Confidential.
Yeah.
But,
she voices the character lady,
and then plays her in real life. Like it's Hollywood is the character's name. Which oof, big
she
damn
definitely
oof.
would.
Mm-hmm. That's the joke. And literally that is the class of joke that you're getting from Cool World. Like Cool World was supposed to be the adult Roger Rabbit, and it doesn't work in my mind. It just doesn't.
You know, there's one Chris Kattan performance I want to speak about before we move on in this unrelated Mystery Men episode.
Chris Kattan, who is not a part of the cast of Mystery Men
in this movie.
No.
And you might not even be able to 6 degrees him, honestly. Like, you could try, but I don't know how easy that would be.
I could 6 degrees him, but yeah.
I believe you. I think Chris Kattan's his peak performance of his career, and I support him in all of his roles, and I have enjoyed him in most of his roles. And I think the main problem is that nobody knows how to write well for him.
Mm-hmm.
But the people who wrote Undercover Brother,
another movie I've not seen.
They knew what Chris Kattan was all about. Undercover Brother would be a wonderful double feature with Pootie Tang. Unfortunately, we can't cover it on the main feed here because it got a sequel.
It did get a sequel, right?
I refuse to watch. Also, Dave Chappelle in this movie as well as Revolutionary Brother. Yeah. Denise Richards
yep.
is in Undercover Brother as White She-Devil. Oh my God, Steven, this movie's great. You got to see Undercover Brother, dude. I wish we could cover it, but that fucking stupid ass sequel that I will not watch.
With Michael Jai White, though. I
don't care. I mean, I do care, but also I don't care.
There's a story that Griffin Newman from the Blank Check podcast tells about when he met Neil Patrick Harris and says, I really loved you in Undercover Brother.
He was great in Undercover Brother. He was so wholesome in that. It's like the sweetest boy.
And apparently Neil Patrick Harris just looked at him and goes, that one?
Yes.
To which Griffin was like, fuck you, dude. You were great in that movie. How dare you?
Yo, Harris was the bomb.
In Undercover Brother, though.
Yeah, dude.
Harris, you're the bomb in Undercover Brother, yo.
And, you know, it's a few years removed, but I feel like this tangent does belong on this podcast because it is kind of a superhero movie in that same era. It's going for a much more blaxploitation tip on it, but it is kind of, I could see that being a comic adaptation of some sort, even though it wasn't. I could see it being in kind of the same genre.
In my research, I came across a comparison between this movie and another late 90s parody movie that really did actually hit big, which was Austin Powers. And Undercover Brother is really doing what Austin Powers was doing, but for blaxploitation films.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, in a way. Right. You know, the most interesting thing about my love for this movie is that it comes from the most unlikely source. Past and future guest and friend of everyone on the podcast, JP Leck.
Love that guy.
Introduced me to Undercover Brother. Now, you know JP Leck.
I do.
And you're looking right here at Undercover Brother. Does that look like a combination that you would naturally think was going to happen? This man introduced me to this shit.
But here's the thing. I know his brother pretty well.
And also, his wife. His wife.
Right.
Yeah.
Past and future guests of the show, Sam Dumas. But like I know that they grew up on a lot of like 70s TV, like the blaxploitation, kung fu shit. Like they were into that. So I
Yeah.
guess that it surprises me, but at the same time, I get it. Like I kind of get it also. So
Yeah, he's kind of surrounded by people who have the sensibilities that attract this film.
yeah, for
So it
sure.
does make sense, but still definitely a curveball.
Yeah, if you think about it for more than like 20 seconds, it makes sense. But
Yeah.
for those first 20 seconds, you're very confused.
Like, wait a minute.
Love you, Joseph.
Yeah.
He'll be on very soon. Hint, hint, wink,
Very,
wink, nudge,
very
nudge.
Very, very soon.
Very soon.
Unless he gets detention, and then I don't know if he'll be able to make it, if I'm being honest.
Tucker, let's talk more about Mystery Men because I fucking love this movie and I can't
Do you
believe
think we should?
we've gone almost an hour into this podcast and have talked so little about the movie we're actually supposed to be talking about.
Do you think we should do the plot?
The Canadian Quarter of Indifference. Let's do it.
I've got it ready. I got the moose right there.
I see ya. So yes, let's do the plot in 60 seconds. For those of you just joining us for the Mystery Men episode, hi, welcome. We're glad you're here. But also the plot in 60 is the part of the
episode to plop in on.
Right?
Honestly.
Welcome.
Normally you're like, I don't know why you're here because this movie sucks, but not this time.
Not this time, man. This movie fucking rules, and I'm glad you're here. But look, man, if you're here for this episode and this is your first episode, then clearly you are a person of exquisite taste, and we welcome you to this podcast.
And also buckle the fuck up,
and check out our back
journey.
Check out our back catalog too, because there's some good shit back there. We've covered what are we like almost 150 movies in now.
This episode is episode 146.
So yeah, we've covered a lot of ground on this podcast over the years, and so for that reason, we are happy to do this. Is our 146th plot in 60 seconds. This is the part of the show where we recount the plot of the movie we're watching. In this case, Kinka Usher's 1999 film Mystery Men in 60 seconds or less. And to decide which of us will be doing that, either Tucker or myself, we will flip what is known as the Canadian Quarter of Indifference. Tucker has that queued up. The queen is heads, the moose is tails. Tucker will flip, I will call, and based on that call, it will determine which of us will be recounting the plot of 1999's Mystery Men. Tucker, take it away.
Call it in the air. Here it goes.
Tails.
It is heads.
Honestly, either way I win. Because if it's heads, I get to talk about Mystery Men some more. So yay. Go ahead and put 60 seconds on the clock, my friend, and I will recount the plot of 1999's Mystery Men.
I will start the clock when you start, and of course I will give you the 30-second and 10-second warnings.
Thank you very much, sir.
You have to start talking for me to...
The Red Eyes break into a nursing home and start stealing a bunch of shit. The Mystery Men come to stop them. The Shoveler, Mr. Furious, the Blue Raja, and they get their asses kicked until they're saved by Captain Amazing, the champion of Champion City, who is mad because all of his villains are pretty much put away. And so he, in his alter ego, as billionaire Lance Hunt, breaks out the criminally insane Casanova Frankenstein, played by Jeffrey Rush, from the mental hospital where he is. He then proceeds to, upon being free, blow up the mental hospital
30 seconds.
And then build the psycho-fraculator. He kidnaps Captain Amazing, and then the Mystery Men, they recruit, they get a few more members, they end up killing Captain Amazing, and then they go back with a Herkimer battle jitney, and using the power of teamwork and the hammer of not bickering, they end up striking down all of the foes that Casanova Frankenstein has gathered together. They chuck him into the fraculator and then come out to meet their adoring public and win one for the little guy.
How do I get it to stop?
You push the button.
I did push the button, but then everything just disappeared.
I don't want to get fraculated, psycho-fraculated, still fraculated.
Yeah.
God, I love this movie so much. I am always amazed at how quotable this movie is, and it is so incredibly like quotable. Like I love it. I love it. And I will tell you two things about this movie. This movie has one of my all-time favorite jokes in film history, where he is talking to his publicist, played by Ricky Jay, the great Ricky Jay. Like we could probably spend 2 hours just talking about the cast of this movie and how insanely stacked this cast is, and how they got most of them for a song because no one knew who the fuck these people were in 1999. Like, it's amazing. Like, Ben Stiller is probably and William H. Macy are probably your biggest names in this movie. And they're both indie guys. Like, madness. Like, and now they're fucking huge. Like, Academy Award nominated. Like, insane. Like, it's mad how this movie is insane to me. What was I saying?
You were saying the cast is rad. You're talking about Ricky Jay.
Ricky Jay. When he's talking to his publicist, Ricky Jay, magician Ricky Jay, who at one point says, I'm a publicist, not a magician. Ha ha ha. Funny.
LOL.
He says he's talking to Ricky Jay about how frustrated he is that he doesn't have any good villains anymore. He goes, I don't know, get Deathman. And Ricky Jay just very deadpan goes, Deathman is dead. That is one of my favorite throwaway jokes in film. I love it so much. Deathman is dead. Like, I love that is a great line. That, like, just the construction of that line is perfect. I love it so much. And then Greg Kinnear's delivery of "oh dang" right when he gets chloroformed by Casanova Frankenstein is maybe my favorite line reading ever. Like, his delivery of that is perfect. I love it so much.
There's the perfect amount of Greg Kinnear silliness in this movie.
And
if there were any more, it would have been too much. Had there been less, it would not have been enough.
I love when Greg Kinnear gets a little bit silly. He's good.
And this character, like, bring your appetite if you're Greg Kinnear, because you can eat this shit up. And
the Captain Amazing role is the stand-in for the Flaming Carrot, because CGI is a relatively new thing, and they're like, there's no way we can fucking do this on screen in 1999. Yeah,
and I get that. I would have liked to see the Flaming Carrot, but I get it.
I think if they'd have done a sequel, we probably would have. Honestly, I think we would have seen the Flaming Carrot if there had been a sequel. But Greg Kinnear's Captain Amazing is the stand-in for the Flaming Carrot, and he is Superman. I love the riff on the Superman Clark Kent thing, where it's so obvious and yet everyone is completely ignoring it. Like,
Lance wears glasses.
Come on. How would he see?
Fucking kidding me?
He takes them off when he transforms. That's insane. How would he see? And then he's like holding up the two like circles and like holding up in front of his face and going, do you know Lance Hunt? Yeah, it's me. Really? No, I'm just kidding. I've always wanted to do that. Like, you're just like, oh my God, how stupid is this man? And it's so good. Like, it's so funny.
It is good. There's a lot of good comedy in this, but I think for me, the best running joke that never leaves the film, it's a joke that is presented at a certain time and then it stays with you for the rest of the film. And it's when Mr. Furious is talking to the Sphinx and like calling him out for how like shitty his philosophical speak is. And so every time he does it from that point on, you're still laughing. Like when he's like, but until you master your rage
will become your master. That's what you're going to say, right?
Right.
Not necessarily. And motherfucking Wes Studi. Can I just give some love to the amazing Wes Studi? Like, that guy.
He was popping around then, dude. He was in everything around that time.
Okay, so he is in one of my all-time favorite movies ever. Michael Mann's Heat.
Oh, yeah, he is.
I fucking love him in that movie. And honestly, he does a couple Michael Mann films because he's Academy Award nominated for Last of the Mohicans, which is a Michael Mann film. He's also in Avatar, too, like one of the highest grossing movies of all time.
And he's the weird naked Native American in the Doors movie.
Yes, he is in 91. So 1990, he does Dances with Wolves. My least favorite actor, Kevin Costner's Dances with Wolves. He does Indian in the Desert in The Doors in 91. Last of the Mohicans in 92. 93, he's in Walter Hill's Geronimo, an American Legend. 94, I forgot he was in this. He's Sagat in Street Fighter in
Yeah, dude. He straight up is.
1994.
Yeah. He's all like Tiger, Flame.
Yeah. 95, he does Michael Mann's Heat. 96, he's in Crazy Horse. 97, he does The Killing Jar, which I don't know. 98, future episode of this podcast, Deep Rising.
I was going to say, you better not skip Deep Rising.
No, dude, we're going to cover Deep Rising one of these days.
I can't wait. I might have a guest for that. But yeah.
Okay, right on. I've been waiting for you to bring in some guests. You know some great people. I want to get them on. But and then in 99, of course, we have Mystery Men. But no, you're absolutely right. Like Wes Studi is popping, and he is one of the Native American First Nations actors who has done so much to advance the negative Hollywood stereotypes surrounding Native actors for so long. Like he's in Reservation Dogs. He's in Penny Dreadful. I think that's
why it's very it makes sense that he's in Reservation Dogs, because that's kind of what that show is all about. Him and
I want to say Graham Greene is another one who's very much like, again, another First Nations actor who is just, again, also in Dances with Wolves. He was in previous episode of this podcast, Maverick, also in Reservation Dogs, just an insanely great actor who happens to be a First Nations actor and is, again, does so much to advance that group and that cause. And I love both of those actors so much. And this is my first exposure to Wes Studi. And then after that, I just started seeing him everywhere. And I love Wes Studi so much. Yeah,
he pops up all over the place.
Fucking a cat. And every time I see him, I am so happy to see Wes Studi. Like, I am never not excited for some Wes Studi action in my life. Like, I fucking, and he is one of him and like William H. Macy and Jeffrey Rush add such a level of gravitas to what is a deeply silly movie. And you can tell absolutely. Jeffrey Rush is having a ball in this movie. Yeah.
He kills it in this movie.
He's having way into it. If you don't think Jeffrey Rush is having a good time, just watch the look on his face when he is fighting Ben Stiller with his pinky. At the end of this fucking movie, he is having the time of his fucking life. And honestly, yes, Casanova's Frankenstein is a lateral move to Captain Barbossa in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Like, that is a lateral fucking move.
Bigger paycheck, but yeah.
Yeah. No, 100% bigger paycheck. but in terms of like performance, that is a lateral move. Like, he is going so huge and over the top in both of those. And honestly, that is a fun mode for Jeffrey Rush. He may not be a great person in real life. He's been accused of some shit. And I tend to prefer to believe the victims on that shit rather than the courts, but do with that what you will. But he is, God, he when he is going big like that, I love it. I'm having a good time.
Well, I think even when he's not going big and other things that he's in, he always knows what kind of film he's in. And you never catch Jeffrey Rush phoning it in or misinterpreting the tone of a film. Like, he always knows exactly what movie he's in.
He understands the assignment, as the kids used to say. Like that, and that is absolutely the mode that he exists in here. Like, he knows what movie he's in. And apparently he, along with like some of the comedians and the guys, he's up there improvising. Like the scene with the mobs, with all the mobs kind of gathered around the table, where Michael Bay was in that scene, and Jeffrey Rush started improvising.
Can we bring the brewskis?
Dude, can we bring the brewskis? Yes, of course. You most certainly brings the brewskis. Like, Michael Bay's in that scene, and Michael Bay hated being in this movie. Like, Jeffrey Rush started improvising, and he said his line at the wrong time, and then called cut himself, forgetting that he was not the director. He's like, shit, cut, I fucked that up.
It tracks.
And then like Kinka Usher was like getting in his face with like a lens, like with a camera lens, and Michael Bay's like, you cannot be that close to me with that shitty fucking lens. Like, And then he was like not prepared for how long actors would have to like wait in their trailers while a shot
Yeah.
was set up. So he was like bored out of his mind. So he's like, when it was like, there's nothing in the fridge, there's like no sheet on the bed. I'm like bored out of my mind. So now on my movies, anytime I have a trailer, there's going to be a stocked fridge and video games and copies of all my movies, which, I mean, we could probably pick some better movies, but okay.
It's something, man. Like, good for him, you know? That's
Right.
pretty cool.
But there's no real like way that like there's nothing really documented about why Michael Bay's in this movie, but I assume because Bay got his start in commercials too. Like
Yeah.
Bay did the infamous Aaron Burr got milk commercial. So
Yeah,
like I'm
that's what I
sure
figured.
I'm
Pretty
sure they
sure
were
they're
and
all
this
pals.
this was the time when commercial directors were like getting work in Hollywood. Like 99 was kind of the summer of the commercial filmmaker. And you've also got like Michael Bay, David Fincher are the two big ones that kind of made it out of there.
Yeah.
But like the guy who
It's
directed
commercials and music videos around that time for sure.
exactly. Like it used to be like those guys would have to like come to Hollywood and like really pitch a script hard. Now people are like knocking down their doors going, please, please make our movie. And there's a certain sensibility in it. It particularly with like a Michael Bay movie, and I've heard this observation, but this is not an original observation of mine. But a Michael Bay movie is shot like every shot is the most important shot in the movie. And that is 100% the vibe I get from here because the way everything is lit in this movie, the way everything is framed in this movie, you get the fucking Dutch angles out the wazoo in this movie. Like
Yeah.
everything is the most dynamic, the most important, the most insane shot you can possibly do. And it makes for a really interesting and engaging film. I can see how it might give someone motion sickness, but it like makes the film like really dynamic and interesting in a very, very incredible way. And I think if Usher had enjoyed this more, and I think if there had been like more, if he had had more of a desire to do this, I'm interested to see
And
what
if this had
what
made
kind of
money,
I'm anxious to see what kind of filmmaker he would have become had the
yeah, I'd
circumstances
be
been
interested in
different.
that too. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I really like the production design in this too. I read that they used some of the sets from Batman Forever, and I've
Mm-hmm.
always kind of equated these two movies. It'd be a great double feature,
Yeah,
honestly.
it would.
You
Well, and I
know,
think in terms of like stylistically, that's one of the things that this movie is parroting is
I
the
love that
Schumacher Batman films.
90s future look of
Yes.
it. You know what I mean?
The fact that this is a city that is like exists in every country in the world simultaneously. Like you've got the Cyrillic letters on the diner sign. You've got like the Japanese like costuming on Claire Forlani's character at one point. Like this place, this city is everywhere and nowhere all at the same time,
Yeah.
and it's
It's like
kind of
South
great for
Lake.
that.
Yeah.
Like yeah,
Yeah.
and Casanova Frankenstein's castle is the mansion from Casper. Like it's the
Yeah.
same set. Like they just use these sets from these earlier 90s films, and I think it works really well for what this film is trying to do. Like it sets it apart aesthetically in a way that's really interesting. Like they're not going for boring sets. They're really trying something fast, and CGI is not progressed enough to where you can get away with doing this on a big digital backdrop like most movies are set today.
Yeah.
Like you get a parking lot in Georgia and just put up a bunch of green screens and then that's your movie. Like
Yeah.
you actually had to like find locations and
Which
sets, and I love that.
which that's not to say that there's anything wrong with that when done right, and I think the original Sin City is proof positive of that.
Mm,
But no, it is nice to see the physical sets and everything, the actual locations, but then CGI being a part of it. And
right.
CGI, I think at that time was kind of in kind of the beginning of
Hmm.
that. It was sort of, CGI kind of became a thing in the early 90s. Then
And you
you
can tell
had
based on the
the
digital
hand
effects
and picture
here.
world,
Yeah.
and then it kind of peaked with Jurassic Park, and then it just kind of got shitty for a while. But I think much like your 70s and 80s horror films that had super low budgets, and sometimes the low budgets actually worked for the films. It's the
Hmm.
same with the CGI in this movie. I think because of the tone of this film, I think because of the production design and the way that this film is shot, the CGI, even though it doesn't age well, it ages fucking perfectly because
Right.
it fits this film, even though it's not good CGI.
It's not
It
at
fits
all.
this
Like
movie. It works for this movie.
anytime something is getting cyclofraculated in this movie, it is very obvious that it is very bad CGI. And but by the same token, it absolutely like, and when you're doing that push, all the pushes through Champion City are very clearly like CGI models, and you're just kind of pushing through like these CGI models, and it's a step up from like say like the '98 Godzilla, but it still works pretty well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a good shitty beer, man. Like it just works. It's not great, but it fucking works. And speaking of things that are digital and CGI, like I would like to take this opportunity to speak a bit on the 4K release that I
Yes,
purchased a couple months ago.
I was
Uh,
honestly eyeing that on Amazon today.
and is it worth it? I would say yes, just because it's not that expensive, honestly. And
It's like 20
also
bucks, right?
according to the back of the box here, it's put out by Kino
I do
Lorber,
love
which is
Kino Lorber, yeah.
a boutique brand, which
Oh.
is also who puts out the version of Brick that I have, the copy of Brick that you currently have,
I do
Steven.
need to send you that along with a copy of the Scream 2022 4K. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And also I have a copy of their print of My Boyfriend's Back, Bob Balaban's second film, which we will definitely cover at some point on my show if it ever happens on
If
Patreon.
at this point, like God, we've made no headway on that. We keep promising and promising and
Hey,
teasing, and nothing ever
I've got a
comes of
theme
it.
song. Thanks to Jimmy, I have a theme song bought and paid for. I paid this man $75 to write this theme song,
That is $75 more than we paid you to write any of our music.
well, because I don't fuck around, man. I'm trying to help out artists. I've got, I don't pay any rent, and I work all the time, so I don't know what to tell you, Steven, but I got a little
all,
money to throw around.
so all your income is disposable, is what I'm hearing.
Well, not all of it. I mean, I do
Okay,
have a child that requires feeding and clothing and
sure,
other
sure,
such
sure.
things. I have a vehicle and I have a cellular telephone and other such things. It's just the big one that most people have, I do not have.
Right, which is, I mean, nice for you, man.
But speaking
Hmm.
of the Mystery Men 4K,
That is some
according to
pretty
the
box
back,
art too.
this is uh, it's a 4K scan of the original camera negative, which I believe, and which I will also say is fine. And I think that's because there's so much digital stuff in this movie that it never really looks like a movie that's on film.
Mm,
So
that
even
makes
the
sense.
4K transfer, it looks great, but it doesn't blow me away like something like the Virgin Suicides. You know what I mean?
Sure, sure.
Like I could probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference between this and the Blu-ray that's in here.
Mm.
Just because that's the kind of movie it is.
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
a
that makes
lot of this
sense.
is digital stuff, and especially with the color grading, it's a very dark film. The colors are very muted, you know. There's a lot of digital stuff in there, so I'm not saying that this is not an accurate 4K transfer. It's just, I would say maybe not a necessary one. I'm
Fair,
glad I have it. I'm glad I
fair.
have it. This is the best quality I can have it in right now, and I'm glad that I own it. It also has the commentary that was on the original DVD. It has 4 extra new featurettes plus the old featurette that was on the DVD.
I love that featurette, that making of featurette. That's a good one.
It has some deleted scenes as well. I haven't checked any of that shit out, though I
The
have actually listened to the commentary because I used to own the DVD of this as well.
mhm. So let's talk some of the deleted scenes, because this is a movie that feels like there's a lot left on the cutting room floor. Like it feels like
This
there's
could
a
easily be 2
lot.
movies, I
It,
feel like.
or like a good like 2.5 hour movie.
Mhm.
And I
Well,
mean
this
for the
is it kinda it does the same thing as Pootie Tang does to where, like, they expected something a lot bigger,
mhm,
so the dialogue is that this thing is happening in a week, or this
right,
thing is happening in 3 days or 4 days, but because they had to squish it all together and you can see, just like in Pootie Tang, you can see their mouths are not saying what they're saying when they're like, "This is happening tomorrow," or "This is happening tonight," and so much shit
right.
this whole movie takes place in, like, I think 2 days?
Oh, like 2 or 3 days, yeah.
How what? What? There's
Yeah,
so much. There's
there's
so much.
so much happen. There's at least 3 evening scenes in this movie.
I know.
Um, and honestly, so I think so. There's the first night where they go up against the Red Eyes. That's night 1, and then that same night um he follows the Disco Boys to Casanova Frankenstein's.
Yes.
So that's night 1. The next
Yes.
night is the night where they like apparently like sometime over the course of the next day or 2 question mark they recruit Invisible Boy, Spleen, and the Bowler.
Clean. Yeah.
That should be about 2 days. So we're up to 3 days now.
That feels like a week to me, though. In the movie, it feels like a whole week.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. It feels like a whole last week. And then the next night is when they attack Casanova's car. So that's night 4. And then the night after that, then there's the training montage, and God only knows how long that takes.
Right?
Like that's left up to interpretation.
Was that an afternoon? Like, come on, man.
Right. There's no way
They
to
do
know.
so much in that montage. They make costumes in that montage.
They make costumes. They like the Sphinx like dispenses all of his like wisdom. Like when you could balance a tack hammer on your head, you can head off your foes with a balanced attack. Like, and why am I wearing the watermelon on my feet? I don't remember telling you to do that.
Hey, speaking of watermelon jokes that don't make any sense, I read a lot about how Buckaroo Banzai might have been a bit of an inspiration for this film.
I believe
And that
it.
is, I want to believe that is a shout out to Buckaroo Banzai having a watermelon joke that just doesn't make any fucking sense at all. And that's why it's funny.
I've heard that it is an allusion to the old vaudeville joke, the watermelon and the sledge-o-matic, which I think was later picked up by comedian Gallagher.
Yes. That tracks. But still, I hope maybe it was a little inspired by that.
I mean, one can hope.
Whenever I hear that joke, I do think about Jeff Goldblum asking about the watermelon.
Yeah. I don't remember telling you to do that.
Tell you later.
And maybe that part of it was inspired by Buckaroo Banzai. Maybe it's a dual inspiration kind of a thing, but
maybe the world may never know.
World may never know. We might have to ask what was the Neil Cuthbert about that. Neil Cuthbert, by the way, another writer whose oeuvre we can pretty much cover most of on this podcast. We cannot cover Hocus Pocus, but we could recover the return of Swamp Thing on Unenfranchised one of these days. Hocus Pocus we cannot. Mystery Men we are. And then his last movie, the last film he ever had a writing credit on, Eddie Murphy's The Adventures of Pluto Nash.
What happened to him? He's still around. He found another profession.
You
get that far, and then you're like, okay, whatever.
He's not getting credited on. He's not getting credited on shit, but like he might be doing like script doctor work, which pays pretty well, but you don't always get the credits. Like WGA arbitration and the way that works is kind of fucking weird. Like I had heard that Bob Burden had worked on the script, but like he doesn't get a credit on it, and I don't know to what extent that's true because I feel like if Bob Burden had worked on the script, it'd be a little more. Like there'd be a lot more characters from the comics here.
Yeah. I don't know. Like most of the time, when that's the creator, right? Bob Burden.
Yeah, Bob Burden.
Most of the time when the creators work on these sorts of things, it's more of a consultant kind of thing. Like they might be on set, same as the writer, but I feel like it's more of a consultant role. Like even Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird on a lot of the Ninja Turtle films, like they were around, but they were just kind of there to maybe answer questions about.
Well, I mean, sometimes they do let the original writers of things write the scripts. Like sometimes
that does definitely happen. Yeah.
And a lot of sources can call Bob Burden a co-writer, and I don't know to what extent that's true. Because Cuthbert is the only credited screenwriter on this film.
All we have is speculation at the moment.
Exactly. Like jury's still out, results unclear. but no, God, I love Mystery Men so much. Let's talk about some more of the cast of this movie. Oh no, I know what I was wanting to talk about, like the deleted scenes, because a lot of this movie feels incomplete. Like you don't see it happen, but like the last shot, you can tell they throw the tornado in a can into the fraculator.
Yeah, the original ending, yeah.
Yeah, which was the original ending, which Kinka Usher kind of re-edited and reshot because the studio wanted a more like heroic big cheer kind of ending. So
Kind of a perfect ending for the bowler. I'm just saying.
it kind of is for Carmine, yeah, for sure. Your baby bowler. I'm the man who gave your daddy the shaft. God, I love her so much in this movie. She's so fucking good in this movie. Um, but I think any female character that is not named the bowler gets really short shrift in this movie. Like Lena Olin is fucking wasted in this movie. Like she is the psychiatrist. She's got like one line at the beginning. She shows up again
Yeah.
and doesn't say another fucking word. She just kind of like Casanova's arm candy through the whole movie. Like that's it. That's
Yeah.
all she does. And
When
she's
when she's introduced, like with the twist of like, of course you knew that she was bad,
the way she
but with the
delivers the
twist,
line. Yeah, you can tell.
that she's like directly Casanova Frankenstein's like right hand man, and then
Mhm.
nothing ever happens with that. Like we don't
Mm-mm.
even know what happens to her. We have no idea
No,
what happens to her.
no
She just
idea.
disappears from the film at a certain point.
And she's a good actress. She's been in like The
Yep.
Unbearable Lightness of Being, Romeo's Bleeding. Like
Uh,
she was on, I know her most from Alias, from like the season of Alias that she did. Like she was fucking
yep.
great on Alias. Like she's an absolutely incredibly talented performer, and she's just relegated to a background role. Like Claire Forlani as well. The Ninth Gate, same year as
Well, I think
this, The Ninth Gate, she's in as well. But
Mallrats, Claire Floyd, yeah.
Claire Forlani,
She's
Mallrats, yeah.
I think I read that she did have a lot bigger role originally in the original script,
Mm-hmm.
where she actually had a bigger role involved with Mr. Furious and also helping the team in their final battle in some way. I don't know.
Right.
Um,
But I mean, she is his redemption arc.
mhm.
Like she is his redemption arc, and we just don't end up seeing that. Like none of that
Well,
made
and
it
it
to the
works. I
screen.
mean, it does still work. Like that whole scene does still work.
It's
It's a little out there, but if you've held on this long, then that's not that out there. You
right.
know, it still works, but it would be nice to see, maybe a two-part version of this film or, kind of an editor's cut
An
of
extended
this.
cut. Yeah. I
Yeah,
would.
like tone and pacing be damned. I just want to see all the shit.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I absolutely want to see what was left out of this movie. Like again, there's just arcs that seem to like be like a little clipped and a little cut short. Like I feel like Blue Raja never gets his hero moment in the final battle. Like his hero moment is helping Mr. Furious get up the wall. That's his hero
Yeah.
moment. Like
Yeah.
every literally every other character gets a big hero moment in that final battle, with the exception of the Sphinx. Like with all the guns in that final battle, you'd think the Sphinx would split some of those in half with his mind. Like
Right, that's his whole deal.
that's his whole deal. Plus, I hear he can like break guns in half with his mind. Like and, and the Disco Boys and all the guns just like pop, 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 like it's so good. But like all the guns and the Sphinx is not like, so the Sphinx and the Blue Raja really don't get it here. I think the Sphinx's hero moment is when Mr. Furious asks for the group hug. And like the look on Wes Studi's face, he is so happy. Like the Sphinx is so happy that they're doing the group hug. He's like, yeah, he's like so excited.
Wow. And we haven't even mentioned Tom Waits yet.
I have got to tell you, Tucker, Ruby's Arms is maybe the saddest song I've ever heard in my life. I cry every time I hear it. And even before I was just a constant depressive mess, like I am now, I would cry anytime I heard, because it's just it's this beautiful melancholy song, and I love his voice. I love his experimentation with instruments, and it feels like a lot of that shit made its way into this movie and that funhouse scene.
Well, it did. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in a way, he's very similar to his character as a musician because Tom Waits just like makes shit.
He
Like
does.
he'll use regular ass instruments, but he's also like, what if we put some strings on that motherfucker? What would that sound like? Like, what if we hit that with a drumstick? Let's see
Mm-hmm. What
what
if we hit
happens
it
when we
with
do that.
what if we hit it with a hammer?
Yeah.
Like he is an incredibly experimental musician. I almost said filmmaker, but he's not a
Yeah.
filmmaker; he's a musician. Like, and that's his like main
Great
thing.
actor.
He'll act, and I love when he shows. Whenever Tom Waits is in a movie, I get unnecessarily excited. Like when he shows up, he's got one
Because you
like
know he doesn't just show up for anything.
exact. He's got like a scene in the movie Domino, Tony Scott's Domino, a
Mhm.
movie I did not like, but when
I
he
didn't
showed
like it
up,
either. Yeah.
I cheered. I cheered when Tom Waits shows
I
up in
share
that
that
movie.
sentiment. Yes.
I
Yes.
did not like Domino, but God, I loved Tom Waits in that movie. Like my favorite Tom Waits story, and I don't know if I've told this on the podcast or not. My favorite Tom Waits story. So one of my all-time favorite television shows is HBO's The Wire. I love that
Yeah.
show. It is a fucking masterpiece.
I got stuck on the third season, but eventually I'll get through it.
Season 4 is incredible. Season 4 might be the best season of the show. So just if that helps you at all. And that one's also got a young Michael B. Jordan in it. So I know you love
Well,
your
he
Michael B.
wasn't. Michael B. Jordan was in season 1.
Was he?
You said season 4. Yeah, Michael B. Jordan's in season 1, and I don't think he's gonna come back for another season. If you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. I thought he was in season 4. That's my mistake.
No, that's season 1, and
All
then
right.
season 2 is white people at the docks, and
I
then
am
I like
one of the
season 2 as
weird
well.
people. I'm one of the
Fuck up
weird people
season
that
2.
really love season 2. Like I think
good.
season 2 fucking rules.
I don't think there's anything for the characters that are kind of left over from season 1 to do, but I'm sure they'll find something for them to do in the third season.
Yeah. Season 4
Kinda
though
displaces them.
season 4 is kind of incredible. I like what they end up doing with Presbeluski in season 4.
I haven't seen season 4. I've only seen the first 2 seasons.
I know.
I just got burnt out on it because it was so good. I just couldn't stop watching it, and then the third season rolled around, and I was like, "Oh, I got to take a break."
The third season, that's like that ties up a lot of the Barksdale shit, which is really good. Yeah,
I might get back on that. It's been a couple years. It's about time.
Restart and do a full rewatch. Like it's worth it. It's been a while since I'm due for a rewatch. If I forgot that Michael B. Jordan is in season 1,
dude, that's season 1, dude. What are you doing?
Fuck me, I guess. But the
Tom
theme
Waits
song
not in The Wire.
No, the theme song for The Wire though is a Tom Waits song.
Yes,
called Down in the Hole, which is a great fucking song. And one of the fun things about it is that every season they get a different artist or set of artists to perform it. Like that's
they do the same thing with True Detective, which I think is fucking rad.
Yes. But they do the same song, just a different artist covering it every time. And they asked the first season, and Tom Waits actually does it for season 2, which it might be part of the reason why I love season 2 is because I get to hear Tom Waits every episode.
You never skip those credits.
No, I don't. I never do. I never have because I fucking love Down in the Hole. Like I think when Brett and I were doing the We Got 5 on It blog and we did our top 5 favorite theme songs, I think I had The Wire on my list because I love Down in the Hole so much.
Every version, yes.
Every version of it. And it's always different and it's always great. But Tom Waits is always my favorite because I fucking love Tom Waits. One of my students back when I was teaching burned me a disc of like 10 Tom Waits albums called Tom Waits for No Man. And so I had like on my Zune, back when I had a Zune, because I refused to get an iPod, I had like
Zune Army forever.
Yeah. I had like just acres and acres of Tom Waits music, and it was so great. Like everything from like Swordfish Trombones through like
that's my favorite record of his, actually.
It's the one. Like if there's one Tom Waits record you get, it's that one.
That's the one you show people. Yeah,
it is. I think I also got his Glitter and Doom when Glitter and Doom came out. Like I ran out to buy Glitter and Doom, which is a good album. Anyway, they asked Tom Waits for permission to use Down in the Hole for The Wire, and they sent him the letter, and they just hadn't heard from him. And like weeks and weeks and weeks went by, they hadn't heard from him. So eventually they like call him. They're like, "Hey, did you get our request? We're really wanting to use it for the show. Like we're coming down to The Wire.
The Wire.
We're coming down to The Wire here, and we really need an answer from you." He goes, "Oh yeah, sorry, I gotta wait till my wife gets back into town because he wanted to see the show first. That was what it was. He wanted to see the show before he gave permission.
Yeah.
Understandable." He goes, "Yeah, I gotta wait because my wife's out of town and she's the one who knows how to work the VCR." So he had to wait like a week till his wife got home so she could put the show on the VCR. But then he watched it and immediately gave permission. He's like, "Yeah, this is great."
Yeah.
So, and another story from this movie that I love about Tom Waits is all the weird shit he's doing with his hands is because he had a hard time memorizing his lines, like Marlon Brando style. So he fucking wrote them all on his hand. So the way he's like holding his hands,
he says some really weird words.
He does.
I would probably have to like shit. I don't even know what the fuck he's talking about. Like I'd probably have to write that on my hands too.
Based on simple dry cleaning technology. Like I love everything here is completely non-lethal. Like
I like the stance this whole movie takes, anti-gun, like sort of a traditional sort of Batman stance, like no killing, no guns.
Only the villains use guns. 100% non-lethal, yet 100% effective. Like all the weaponry they use, from the tornado in the can to the shrink ray to the blame thrower, like all of it is. Like he says, 100% non-lethal, but 100% effective.
Yeah.
And like just like the little throwaway shit things that he does, like when he sits down in front of the TV at the end, and he's like, "What that fraculator thing work? What's the story with that?" Like you can tell he's like completely ad-libbing shit, and it works so fucking well. Like, and that was one of the things that led to so much difficulty on the set is the fact that Usher knew he had a cast of improvisers, and so he let them improvise
and unique voices too.
Mm-hmm. But and I think it's the fact that A, they're all great improvisers, but B, all the voices are so unique that none of them could cohesively agree on what the comedic tone of the movie should be.
Which, and for promotional purposes, that does not work. But for me, it's fantastic.
It's a too many cooks scenario. Right, like
but got in a good way when you're watching the movie, in a bad way if you're trying to promote that bitch. You know what I mean?
But you can see in the movie, because again, there's multiple comedy styles at play at any given moment. Like what William H. Macy is doing is very different from what Ben Stiller is doing, is very different from what Hank Azaria is doing, and yet they're your three protagonists.
What Kel Mitchell's doing, like, and even Paul Reubens, like Jeffrey Rush, everybody's doing something different, but I don't know. It works for me. Like sometimes
it's a symphonic cacophony.
Sometimes there's beauty in chaos, and this film, comedic wise, tone wise, should not work. There's no reason this fucking thing should work.
No,
but somehow it's perfect.
It is.
It's fucking perfect.
And that's and again, I'm of the mind where I'm like, I will not say this is a good movie. Like strictly speaking, good movie, probably not. But I think this is a great movie. Like I love this movie. Like I bought Howard the Duck on 4K. I fucking adore this movie.
I cannot sanction buying Howard the Duck on 4K, but I can sanction buying this film on 4K. Or Blu-ray if it's cheaper, because honestly, they probably look about the same.
But I definitely put the 4K on my Amazon wish list. So if you love me, find me on Amazon and buy it for me, please. Thank you.
Right now.
But yeah, no, I fucking love this movie so much, and like I get King Usher's frustration though. Like you're dealing with a lot of very powerful, very prominent, very up and coming voices. And at least one of your cast members is a filmmaker in his own right. Like Ben Stiller directed Reality Bites. Like that is a Ben Stiller movie. Like it's like he is a direct, and he was actually attached to direct this at one point. At another point, Guess who else was attached to direct this movie, Tucker? And I kind of want to see his version of this movie.
Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito was attached to this movie at one point. Was also supposed to play the shoveler in that version of the movie, and I kind of wonder what that would have been
He would
like.
be very mole-like, which would have kind of fit that character. You know?
It would have worked really well, and you can guarantee like Vincent Schiavella would have been in that movie. I fucking love Vincent Schiavella.
Ben Stiller was going to direct it at one point, but he said it was like too much. He's like, fuck that. He had a very Kevin Smith Superman Lives moment where he's like, this is probably above my pay grade. I don't know if I can do this.
No, so he was supposed to direct it, and then DeVito was supposed to direct it, and apparently DeVito dropped out because of issues with the soundtrack.
Yeah, that's what I read. I didn't quite understand that, but
I didn't get that either. But I read that and I was like, I don't know what that means.
What does that even mean? What does it even fucking mean?
I mean, this movie has a gloriously late '90s soundtrack.
You know, next time they have Danny DeVito on the Always Sunny podcast and they field questions from the audience, I'll see if I can pop in there and be like, "What was the soundtrack issue on Mystery Men? The world needs to know."
Look, man,
really need to know.
And I know I've said this on this podcast before, but Danny DeVito is one of my like favorite underrated directors.
He's an amazing director, yeah.
He's an unbelievable, and he hasn't directed anything since The Duplex, which is a fucking shame. Because look, no one directs a black comedy like Danny DeVito, and there are not enough.
Peak Danny DeVito.
Thank you. Yes, and again. The guest I would have had on this episode is the guy who introduced me to Death to Smoochie as well. Like,
we gotta do Death to Smoochie and have him on.
I don't know how we do that movie. There's no way that movie was supposed to have a sequel.
We can make it work.
Maybe we covered it on your show.
Okay.
But I fucking love Death to that movie. That's another movie that I don't think is good, but I think is great. Like, in my mind, that movie is perfect, and I love every fucking second of it. It is dark, it is twisted, it is weird as shit, but I cannot get enough of it. And Mystery Men, I feel the exact same way about. Like, if I had a guilty pleasure movie, it would be Mystery Men. Like, Mystery Men is my guilty pleasure movie, such as that is, for whatever the fuck that means.
I think the person that has kind of taken over for Danny DeVito in filling that void of the movies that Danny DeVito normally does, stuff like Death to Smoochie, is Bobcat Goldthwait. I feel like we're getting a lot of the same kind of stuff out of him, like World's Greatest Dad and even Shakes the Clown for back in the day. Like, Bobcat, he kind of has that same kind of sensibility. So even though Danny DeVito's not out there doing that, I feel like he's kind of passed the torch on to someone else.
Right. An upcoming guest actually is a host of a Bobcat Goldthwait podcast.
Fuck yes. Who is it? When is it? I want to talk to him right now. Where are they called him?
I'll tell you off mic.
Fuck. Double fuck.
Fuck. Motherfuck. Noise. Why did I just do that? I don't know.
Because it was appropriate and I appreciated it, Steven. That's all that matters.
I'm glad you appreciated it. God, I feel like I'm paradoxically running out of things to talk about Mystery Men, but I feel like just one thing will like push the dam open and I'll just start talking about Mystery Men again. Like I love this movie so much. Like I can't say enough good things about this movie. Again, is it good? No. Is it perfect? Yes. Like, I don't know how that makes sense, but it does.
It is the perfect storm. Even behind the scenes, even the making of this film, according to everyone involved, was not necessarily an easy or fun experience.
No one had fun making this movie, like at all.
Everybody regards this as like their worst film, which is a shame, but also understandable. If you have a bad experience on something, it doesn't matter how well it comes together, you're still gonna fucking hate it. I get it.
Exactly, yeah.
But it was the perfect storm. You have like brilliance everywhere, but like in different shades, and somehow it all comes together and makes just beautiful chaos. Like I said before, like everybody's going in different directions here. Everybody's doing something different, but somehow it all fucking comes together into something that is cohesive, something that has, even though it has a fluctuating tone, It has its own unique kind of tone.
Yep.
I feel like there's nothing like this fucking movie.
No.
And I
It's
agree with you. It is perfect. There's
it,
nothing in this movie that I would take out.
it's a
Not one
Frankenstein.
thing.
This movie is
Yep.
a Frankenstein. Like it is the pieces are kind of a bit of a jumbled mess, but the way it all kind of coalesces and comes together, it is a movie that is somehow greater than the sum of its parts. And I feel like that is rare in filmmaking. Like, and I know there's some who would probably say, I don't know if this movie holds up, or I don't know. For me,
Fuck you, it does.
I always have fun with this movie. I've never not had a good time with this movie. And the fact that you've got so many people from so many different backgrounds, like you've got musicians, like you got fucking
indie film actors, you've got comedians, you've got established character actors, you've got everything in this movie. People from everywhere. This is just like, we need one person from every specific genre and every specific.
The only thing you don't
like,
have in this
budget
movie is an athlete, really.
They should have thrown Michael Jordan in there, but that wasn't my choice. Like, put Bo Jackson in there, right? Bo knows
Mystery Man. Like
Yeah,
that,
dude.
but like that is one thing that's just not in this movie. But you've got like, yeah, you've got your alt comedians, you've got your indie stars, you've got your fucking indie filmmaker, you've got your
rappers, you've got classic actors. Louise Lasser.
Yes.
Come on, man. Straight up Junket. Like that girl.
Mary Hartman. Like
yes.
50s. Yeah. Yes. Fuck yes. Like this movie is such a perfect storm. And you're right. There's nothing like it. And I don't think there ever could be anything like it again. Like it is, it's a lightning in a bottle kind of thing.
Because I don't think anybody meant for it to be this fucking good. This is all some kind of big cosmic mistake that turned out phenomenally well.
And that's
somehow.
it.
I don't get it, but I fucking love this movie to death.
I can absolutely see why someone would look at this movie and go, that is a piece of shit that I will never watch again.
No, bury me with this motherfucker.
I get, sure. Look, I can understand where you're coming from, but by the same token, absolutely not. I will not give you credence. This movie is incredible. Like this movie is it's a master. It's a fucking piece of art.
And this is the only time you will hear Steven say that about a movie that features Dane Cook.
Yes. Can we talk about the audition scene? Can we talk about the audition scene?
Yes, let's please.
Because that might be one of my favorite scenes of the movie. Like everything from the Jennifer Lawrence, William H. Macy, like banter at the beginning of it. You know, there's a lot of men interested. Still are. I understand. If someone vomits in my pool, I will divorce you. That's fair.
I love their chemistry, man. I love them as a couple. And I love their fucking kids, dude.
The payoff of that scene, of that whole arc too, where he's like on TV and the little kid's like, that's my daddy. And she goes, my hero. Yeah. And I'm like fucking crying. And I'm like, damn straight, man. You love that man. Stand by your man. Like, I fucking love it. But then you get Dane Cook as the waffler. You get Indianapolis.
Who totally misunderstood the assignment.
Oh yeah.
According to not that kind of waffle Dane, but still thank you for coming.
That's great. And I also have my truth syrup, which is low fat.
Yes. Fucking nails it. Like Dane Cook definitely has his moments. You put that man at the right place at the right time, he can spin some gold.
And look, it doesn't happen often. But then you get Indianapolis, Indiana native Doug Jones as Pencilhead.
Dougie Jones.
I fucking love Doug Jones. He's a fucking master of physical acting. Just an absolute.
Dude, he was in the Pan's Labyrinth.
He was the Pale Man and the Fawn. Yeah. He was the
Wasn't he the Shape of Water?
He was the creature from the Black Lagoon in The Shape of Water. He does so much Del Toro shit.
Creature of the Black Lagoon is called Gillman.
Right. You're right.
Scientifically, the nomenclature is the Gillman. But anyway,
yeah, Gillman.
We're gonna technical act.
Gillman. Well, actually, it's Gillman. But no, he does so much Del Toro, and he's so good in all of it.
Yeah.
And then you get like Simpsons like writer Dana Gould as
Also creator of that
Squeegee
one
Man.
show I really liked, Stand Against Evil, which was really good, and everybody should watch it. Yeah, he's Squeegee Man.
You sense its power, yes. And then you get Fast and Furious actor Sung Kang as one of the Susies in the final gang scene at the end. Like this, Mark Mothersbaugh is the band leader at the beginning of the movie.
You know, Mark Mothersbaugh's my boy.
I know
we
Mark
go way
Mothersbaugh
back.
is your boy.
Like, I have a tattoo of his band right there.
I know.
Right
I've seen
there.
it. You showed me it.
Like, we are boys. I've seen him in person. Yeah. Just context for any listeners that are new. That Devo is one of the bands in my top 5 that never moves places.
Yeah. You've also got Jack Plotnick in this movie as well as a character called Mr. Pups. I don't know what that is or what that means, but like he's in there.
Right along your friend Miss Izzard, you've got Proswell from the Fugees, dude.
Pros Michelle, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Who recently has had some few legal troubles.
Oh no,
you guys been following that? Apparently,
I have not. No.
Yeah, he's like had some shady business deals with China, and
oof.
Yeah, oof. It's Pros.
Pros.
Tell me it was an accident. Tell me you didn't know what you were doing, Pros.
Say it ain't so, Pros. Say it ain't so, Pros.
Wyclef's got his back, and I trust Wyclef, so
I
don't know what to make of the whole thing, honestly.
I mean, look, just tell me, Pros, just tell me it was one time.
Yeah, dude. Just learn from that shit.
That's it. Like, God, yeah. But again, and that just speaks to how fucking stacked this movie is. Like,
Ned Bellamy's in this movie.
Ned fucking Bellamy is in this movie.
Yes, dude.
What is life, man?
Mr. Furious is gonna go Pompeii on his ass.
And then you've got Monet Mazer from Torque as Becky Beener, the reporter. You've got from High School Musical, Corbin Bleu as one of the Shovelers kids.
Yeah.
This is, and again, this movie, because this movie is 1999, so many of the people in this movie would go on to do so much bigger things. And like so many of these people, like even the cameos are like kind of niche people that are going to go on to do much bigger shit later on down the line. And that, I think, is part of what makes this movie so special, is you get so many of these, it's this thing where you're able to amass so many people right before they hit, or a few years before they hit, to where when people like us cover it 20 years down the road, or I guess almost 30 years down the road at this point, like we're able to look at it and go like, fuck, this is incredible. This is amazing.
And smack dab in the middle of that incredible cast is fucking Pee Wee Herman, of all people.
Let's do it. We're at the time of this recording, Paul Reubens, the great Paul Reubens, passed away just literally a week ago today, as of the day that we're recording this.
He died on the 30th, yeah.
We're recording this on the 6th, which is just like a few days before this episode is scheduled to drop. And this was, I will say, this was already on the schedule for this. It tragically, and I found out from you when you texted the group chat, like, wow. Well, and I was just like, fuck, who died? And I was expecting it would be someone like Jeffrey Rush or
somebody that's old,
or William H. Macy.
Paul Reubens is 70?
Or Wes. I was deathly afraid.
Paul Reubens become 70?
Probably on his last birthday.
Shut
would be
the
my
fuck
guess.
up, Steven. Anyway, moving on.
But no, like Paul Reubens, like such an unbelievable performer, like a perennial child. Of course, we all know him probably best and most as Pee Wee Herman. I mean, you and I are of an age, Tucker and Brett as well. We're all of an age where like Pee Wee Herman was it when we were kids.
I dressed up as Pee Wee Herman for Halloween when I was 7 years old. I
That
have a
does not
photo of it
surprise me.
that I will ask my mother for and see if I can share it with the group chat so that you all can see it. And
I was going to say, I will put it on the social medias if you are able to
I
send
want you
it.
to.
No,
I'll
absolutely
see if I
will.
can get that.
But I mean, just look. He started. His first movie was 1968. He played a wedding guest in the movie The Brotherhood. The earliest thing that I have seen him in is probably 1980s The Blues Brothers, where he plays one of the waiters at the restaurant. Mm-hmm. The wrong glass, sir. But he's in Cheech and Chong's next movie as Pee Wee Herman. The Pee Wee Herman Show, of course, in 1981 was kind of his big breakout. And from there, Pee Wee Herman is everywhere. Twilight Theater in 82, Madam's Place in 82, the Paragon of Comedy in 83. Like, he just starts showing up until 85 when you get the Tim Burton movie.
Big Adventure, dude.
And we were talking, I mean, he's Pee Wee Herman in future episode of this podcast, Back to the Beach. We can add, because that's a reboot of all those Frankie and Annette shit movies. Like,
we could do a whole month on that shit. There have been so many revivals of those in so many different genres, either serious or parody. We could do a whole month of that shit.
But like, I mean,
beach movie revival movies. Let's do it. Put it on the schedule.
He's a regular Tim Burton collaborator, appearing later in Batman Returns as Penguin's dad.
Penguin's dad, yeah.
Nightmare Before Christmas.
One of the kids in Nightmare Before Christmas, for sure.
He's in future episode. I don't know if actually we'll cover this or not, but he's in Dunstan Checks In. He's in the.
Everybody's got to do a monkey movie.
He's in the Danny DeVito film Hollywood Matilda. He's in the original film Buffy the Vampire Slayer, potential future episode of this podcast, uncertain.
Which he reprises his character in a season 1 episode of What We Do in the Shadows. If you guys aren't familiar, there's a season 1 episode of What We Do in the Shadows where a lot of previous vampire actors come back as like even Wesley Snipes is in that episode. They don't call him Blade, but you know who he is.
Yeah, like
and
the
Paul
Vampire
Reubens
Council
comes back as the Master from Buffy, the Buffy movie.
Well, not the Master, but the yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. But yeah, I mean, like, just a man whose career spanned decades and was such an enduring part of our childhood. Now, I will make a confession. There were three characters that absolutely terrified me as a child. There was Sweetums from the Muppets. There was Jim Varney's Ernest.
Steven, you poor man.
I grew out of it, but his face was so rubbery it seemed unnatural.
I just love Jim Varney's.
No, I do too.
Bottom of my dead little heart.
No, I do too.
Anyway, go ahead.
And then Pee Wee Herman was the third. And I think
Steven, no.
I think the thing that freaked me out about Pee Wee Herman was he was a grown man who was acting like a child, which seemed off-putting to me as a kid. But secondly, he was also, in addition to that, there was an episode of Pee Wee's Playhouse that my mom had turned on for me when I was a kid. And I had walked out into the living room and I was in my pajamas, and he ran up to the camera and he looked in the camera and like right down the lens and said, and it looked like he was looking right at me, and he said, "Nice pajamas. Where'd you get them?" And I freaked the fuck out because I was like, he can see me through the TV, and that is terrifying. So I grew to fear Paul Reubens as a child. I grew out of it as I grew out of my fear of all of those. I did grow out of it. But like, I remember there was a bit he did for Jimmy Kimmel, and I remember it well, where he did the Age of Ultron trailer as Pee Wee Herman. And so he did all of Ultron's lines in that trailer as Pee Wee Herman. and it's really fucking
I don't
funny.
even have to see it, man. It's already hilarious.
I will see if I can find it, because it's too good. It really is too good.
Wow.
But yeah, he basically just redubs the trailer as as Pee Wee. Here, I think I have found it. I will send it to you. Oh, video unavailable. Damn it.
No.
Oh, I need to find it. Because God, that was so fucking funny. I laughed so hard when I saw it. I really did. It was so good. But yeah, no, I mean Paul Reubens, and again, this was already on the schedule. We were already planning to cover this week. We actually were planning on covering it last month, but life found
It's
a way.
it's been on the schedule for over a year, I feel like, at
It
this
really
point.
has. It's been on the schedule for a while. And our guest. I've had that guest attached to this episode for definitely over a year. And it just the last minute it all fell through. But like I love this movie. I adore this movie. And the fact that Paul Reubens' death happened so close to when we were recording this episode, it was not intentional, but it feels like this is kind of the perfect time to cover it, because Spleen is, for me, my rediscovery of Paul Reubens.
Oh yeah. I
It,
can see that. I can see that.
it's absolutely my rediscovery of that performer and that actor. And it hits, it works. Like he is so good in this role. Like the way that he's constantly hitting on the bowler, like he's just a horny little toad.
There's not there's not enough beer in the world.
There's not enough beer in the world, Spleen. I'm sorry. Hi, I'm the Spleen. You're very attractive. Like, and the way he delivers his origin story in the diner is perfect.
Yeah.
Like the way, and he's definitely giving like some Pee Wee Herman energy. Like it's Pee Wee Herman energy, but it's a different character entirely.
Well, the only thing for me that gives him away is sometimes the voice comes through,
Yeah,
because
that's it. Yeah.
A lot of Pee Wee Herman's voice is based in Paul Reubens' natural voice. So
Mm-hmm.
like when he gets loud, he does kind of have a Pee Wee Herman sort of thing going.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that says anything bad about his performance.
No,
That's just his voice.
exactly. Like,
And it's
and
very easy. Something that's remarkable to say about that is that even though you hear that, I don't equate Spleen with Pee Wee at all. Like they're two
no,
completely different characters.
any more than I equate Pee Wee with Emmeline from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Or that motherfucker he plays in Blow, which is, if you haven't seen Blow,
Oh my
Steven,
God,
look up.
I saw Blow years ago. I completely forgot he was in Blow.
Yes, Penelope
Fuck.
Cruz. Yeah,
Yeah.
dude.
Oh, Penelope Cruz. Yeah.
I
But
love
no,
that. I still like that. I actually watched that movie a couple years ago, and it holds up. It's just a really, really fun movie.
I haven't seen it since very shortly after it came out on Blu-ray or DVD.
I worked at the theater when it came out, so I watched it several times then, and I've seen it a few times since then.
There you go.
Yeah.
I completely forgot he was in that movie. But again, he's one of those actors who would just show up and do the work. Like, which I have great respect for actors who are able to do that. Like he's a consummate pro and part of an indelible part of our childhoods. And God, we're gonna miss him. Like there's nothing else. There's nothing else really to say. Like he is an incredible performer, and as much as it pains me that he did die, like the fact that we were able to cover that, this was already built into our schedule, and we're able to cover it and talk about it now, is really it feels kind of God blessed in a way, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I kind of love that. Like I love that for us, that we get to talk about this movie and to talk about his performance, which is a great, like he's and again, he seems to be having such a fun time. Like he's doing such good work. The chemistry between he and Kel Mitchell is unparalleled.
They're the power duo. They are the bros of the movie for sure.
They really are. Yeah.
And speaking, go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna say, like, they're the two outcasts, so like they belong together. Like it's a natural fit. Like this movie kind of exists. There are these little kind of clumps and clusters in this movie, and I think their cluster is one of the more fun ones, if not the most fun one in this movie. I like it quite a bit, and I like what the two of them are doing, and I like the energy that they give off of each other. It's a lot of fun.
Agreed. I think that will bring me to my final point of the evening, and that is I love Kenan Thompson. I love everything that Kenan Thompson has ever done, but how is it that out of the two of them, Kenan Thompson and Kel Mitchell, Kenan Thompson was so successful and Kel Mitchell has barely done anything? That's not to say that Kenan doesn't deserve his success. I'm
Sure.
just saying, how does Kenan get that much success and Kel doesn't? Like, Kenan was always the straight man. He was always the straight man. And he's very good at that. He's very good at playing off like very, very funny actors. And even now, he does the complete opposite himself, and he's amazing at it.
Mm-hmm.
But in those days, you had all that, and you had Kenan and Kel.
Mm-hmm.
And Kenan and Kel were the breakout stars of all that. But even though Keenan's name came first, Kel was the one that had the catchphrases.
Mm-hmm.
Kel was the one whose goofy antics everybody was giggling at. And sure, Kenan grounded it, and he was definitely, a huge part of that. Kel wouldn't have worked without Kenan. I just don't understand how Kel just fell so far by the wayside.
Well, I think Kenan's success you can attribute to 3 words: Saturday Night Live.
Well, yeah. Well, they both auditioned, man. How'd they both not get it, man? Get both those motherfuckers on there. It's a natural transition, dude.
But again, and I think Saturday Night Live has Lorne Michaels maybe specifically has kind of an aversion to established acts. I think very rarely will he allow them all to be on the main cast. I think the biggest concession he'll make is like a Lonely Island situation where he'll bring on the other two as
Please Don't
writers.
Destroy.
Right.
The modern version. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. He'll bring on the other guys as writers, and there will be one guy who's in like the main cast. But like, and maybe he was more rigid on it in the early days, but like, I mean, they both come from all that. Like all that, it was the kid version of Saturday Night Live,
and it was fucking good.
It was
still
fun.
Good. Go back and watch that shit, and you're having a good time. As a 40-year-old man, I will watch all that and have a great fucking time.
I think it's probably streaming on Paramount Plus. I need to go rewatch it because I
own the first 3 seasons.
Of course you do. I loved that show so much when I was a kid. I watched it religiously. Like I loved it. Like what was the girl's name I had such a huge fucking crush on that show?
I don't know. Depends on which cast, honestly.
I mean, original OG.
I'll say I'm OG cast. Yeah, like first 3 seasons, and then I was out because I kind of aged out of it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I want to say her first name was Angelique, but I forget her last name.
Well, this is another edition of the part of the show where Steven looks up stuff in real time. It's very exciting. Everyone loves
Angelique Bates. Angelique Bates. Had a big old crush on Angelique Bates for sure.
Now I have to look her up to see which one she was.
She was a cutie. She probably still is. I just, haven't seen her since all that, but I had a big old crush on her in the 90s. Cause she was adorable.
I believe that. I'm still trying to see if it's somebody I'm familiar with. Who is it? Yeah, I know all those people. Yeah, I'm just scrolling and I don't see this person. I think you made them up, Steven. Straight up made them up. Yeah. TLC did the theme song. I just remembered to all.
Oh yeah, it was just an introduction before we blow your mind. The show is all that. And yes, we do it all the time. So sit your booty on the floor in a chair. Hands go in the air, just don't go nowhere. Cause everything we do, we all of that. We entertaining you. We all of that. My posse and my friends. We all of that. So sit still, cause we coming right back home. all that. Yep, that is my stupid human trick. There you go.
Steven flexing his muscles, the muscles which allow him to remember every TV theme song that he's ever come into contact with.
I'm a fucking weirdo. I don't know why I can do this. I somehow can. It is my stupid human trick.
I'm happy that you can do it.
I hate telling people that I can do it because then all they want to do is try to stump me. Oh, another one I had a crush on, Elisa Reyes. I had a crush on her too.
I don't ever want to stump you, Steven. I'm just wondering why you have not done the entire Facts of Life theme song at this point. Because
you take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have the Facts of Life. The Facts of Life.
Oh, it's because you said you weren't that familiar with it.
There's a time you got to go and show you're grown, and now you know about the Facts of Life. The Facts of Life. When the world never sees, you've been living up to your dreams, and suddenly you're finding out the Facts of Life are all about you. All about you. All about you. It takes a lot to get them right. When you're learning the facts of life. I know the facts of life, dude. Don't step to me.
I wish you would have started out singing, because the beginning of that song, you take the good, take the bad, get back to life. It's like one of those like late 70s country pop singers. I don't remember who it is. It's somebody noteworthy. I don't remember who it is though.
Let me Google that too.
But yeah, fucking Facts of Life. I gotta say that's an S tier sitcom theme song. You don't get much better than that. There are things better than that, but not many. And there are not many that are on the same tier. Also, Facts of Life.
The Facts of Life theme song was composed by Al Burton, Gloria Loring, and then husband Alan Thicke.
Yeah, dude.
It was performed by an artist called Ray.
Man, I wish that Alan Thicke never had any kids. It was performed by who?
Ray.
What?
R-A-E.
TV's Alan Thicke. Okay, I thought it was somebody that I'd heard of, but it's not, apparently.
I mean, Alan Thicke was one of the composers, which is pretty fucking incredible.
I'm way into that.
Now, do you know what theme song... Oh, God. Do you know what theme song Alan Thicke did sing, though?
What's that? I want to know. I gotta know.
Do you know what show The Facts of Life was a spinoff of?
Wait, I do, but I don't. What is it?
Different Strokes.
Oh yeah.
Alan Thicke sang the theme song to Different Strokes.
I am inexplicably way into that.
Yeah.
Way into that. TV's Canada's Alan Thicke.
It Takes Different Strokes, performed by Alan Thicke, Linda Harmon, Gloria Loring, and Gene Morford. He is the primary lead vocalist on
now, do you know that song,
track?
Steven? Could you sing that song for us, Steven?
Now the world don't move to the beat of just one drum. What might be right for you may not be right for some. A man is born, he's a man of means. Then along come two, they got nothing but the genes. But it takes different strokes. It takes different strokes. It takes different strokes to move the world. Everybody's got a special kind of story. Everybody finds a way to shine. It don't matter that you got not a lot. So what? You've got theirs, and you've got yours, and they'll have theirs, and I've got mine, and together we'll be fine. Because it takes different strokes to move the world. Yes, it does. It takes different strokes to move the world.
Wonderful. Thank you, my personal theme song jukebox.
And this is why I don't fucking tell people this.
But
because then the whole thing just devolves into me quoting theme songs.
I'm assuming that you're not singing them because you're sick. Because, it would be a lot more fun if you were singing them and I could provide backup vocals. But I feel like that's a whole other Patreon show.
And here's the thing. Maybe that's what we do for the Patreon. Is maybe we have our patrons like write in with some of their favorite TV theme songs, and I don't look at them. And then you and Brett just, and again, the qualifications I usually get is theme songs within my lifetime that have lyrics between. So like, and there are a few that I know before my lifetime, like some of the big ones.
There's a lot before, I'd say, for me and probably for you.
Probably for me. I'm like The Love Boat.
Mary
I know.
Tyler Moore, like Dick Van Dyke doesn't have any words, but you could be all like, that works too. Like,
but no, I don't. They've got to have lyrics.
We can whistle the Andy Griffith theme if you want.
I could. Yeah, I mean, I could do. But like they've got to have. But like Gilligan's Island, I know. Like The Love Boat, I know. Like, I mean, it's just, there are a lot that I just, again, and that was a weird obsession of mine as a child. And none of that has left my brain because my brain is deeply, deeply broken.
I can dig it.
So maybe that's a Patreon show. And hey, you should join our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/disenfranchised-pod. You can find like literally hours of content over there.
You guys, look, you could join for 1 month. You could pay $5 for 1 month, and you could listen to a couple episodes of whatever's on there pretty straight for those 5 days, and you'd still only be making a dent.
Here's what you get.
The dense amount of content that is on there. Hundreds. I'm not kidding. You think I'm joking? There's hundreds of episodes of business episodes, if you will.
Here's what you get. You get a weekly show that we've been doing for the past few months called What Are We Watching?
Yes, baby, my brainchild.
Which really just stemmed out of a segment I had already created that you just kind of commandeered and took over and renamed for some reason.
I gave it structure. Excuse you.
I don't know that it needed structure, but okay. What Are We Watching, where we talk about stuff that we've watched, and honestly just kind of ramble and muse. So if you like the tangents and the banter, that is a weekly version of just that.
Oops,
pretty
all
much.
Tangent is what it should be called.
Brett's got a show called Oops, All Video Game Corner. We've done like probably 7 of those so far. Like our most recent one, I think will probably be dropping this next week on all the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle video games. In honor of Mutant Mayhem, which we talked about the 2007 film last week. I've got a show that okay. and you did, and Tucker talked about it. And if you want to hear more of his thoughts on that, you should go subscribe to our Patreon. I've got a show called Oops, All Christianity Corner, where we watch movies with religious themes, and Tucker and Brett grill me on them, and we just like chat about organized religion and how fucking weird it is.
Fascinating.
I have a lot of fun with it. Not everyone likes it, but look, there's so much other stuff on there.
You guys, I am a godless heathen, and I have a wonderful time on this show because that shit, whether I believe in it or not, that shit is so interesting to me.
And I've spent the better part of 40 years, like studying that and teaching that. So I
went to college for that shit. Like,
I
that's
did.
the whole thing.
Made a career out of it for a while, for over a decade. So
I'm trying to say Steven knows what he's talking about when it comes to that kind of shit, for sure.
I do okay. We've got commentaries that we've done on Addams Family Values and Train to Busan. We've also got commentaries that we've done on trailers, where we'll just watch a trailer and talk about it. We've got movie reviews of movies that we've seen, like Scream 6. And
Weird, the Al Yankovic
the Al Yankovic story. That's right. Like there is
I'm the weird one.
There is so much stuff. There's our Oops, All Christianity Corner Christmas episode that was free that we posted last Christmas.
On the main feed. Check it out. Scroll down real far.
It's actually not on the main feed. You actually have to go to the Patreon to see it, but it should be free on the Patreon.
Okay.
So
on the Patreon. And we haven't even mentioned like our core shows. We have core shows.
The core shows, which we haven't done in a while, like the Disenfranchised, which is where we do top 5 lists.
I try to force you guys to do one a month, but sometimes it's difficult.
Life finds a way a lot these days,
does.
Dude. We're all busy. Here's the thing. During the summer, we're all busy. All of us, all 3 of us. So it's really hard. It's hard enough to find time for all 3 of us to sit down and talk about a main feed episode, let alone a Patreon episode. But then we've also got Unenfranchised, where we talk about a movie that killed off a popular long-running franchise.
Can we do next year on April Fools? Can we do Unenfranchised, where we do our top 5 list of favorite movies that killed a franchise? Can we do
honestly
that, please?
I don't think we need to wait for April Fools. We can just do that fucking whenever.
Like when DC and Marvel came together in the 90s and did the amalgam universe, you had like Spider-Man and the Dark Claw,
I remember all that, yeah.
You You just birthed a brilliant idea, Stephen. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. My
Your trash
drunken
is our treasure.
my drunken tired stupor at this point is just leading to gold, apparently.
Yes.
But so one of the things that we're pitching now, and hey, if you're listening to this and you're a patron, let us know what you think of that. Should we do an episode of Stump the Chump where you guys write in TV theme songs that you want to hear me either recite or sing? I am not a great singer, so
It's okay. I am.
but yeah, so give us a write in and see what you think. But yeah,
Also, we'd be silly not to mention the theoretical future show Straight Up, which
is that what it's called?
It's called Straight Up, man. Like for now, like it might change.
Is the theme song Paula Abdul or
no?
Straight Up Now? Tell me, do you really want to love me forever?
Oh. The theme song was written by my good friend Jimmy, future guest of the main feed at some point whenever we decide to cover that weird movie I've never heard of that he wants us to cover. And also he will definitely be a guest on Straight Up as well. He wrote my theme song because he is a far more talented musician than I am, and I wanted my theme song to be better than the shit I wrote for this podcast. I wanted to rise above the disenfranchised.
How dare you try to be better than us?
No, never. I would never. No, I did get Jimmy to write it though because I thought it would be weird to write the theme to my own show. That theme has been in the bank for about 3 months, just waiting to start it up. It's going to be a show about obscure films, hidden gems, the underappreciated, the forgotten, and the unknown, if you will.
Right on.
And hopefully that, I'm just trying to get, after the first episode, I don't care if you or Brett want to join, for whenever, that's fine. I would love to have you guys there, but I have to have you for the first episode. I can't do the first episode of that without both my boys. You know what I'm saying? It would be wrong. It would be wrong.
I mean, much as I love you, it always feels weird doing this show without Brett here.
It does. It does.
It always does. Like I
we
love you.
We do great, but there's just a little something missing there.
There's
man.
a Brett-shaped hole in my heart, is what it is.
Agreed.
And I wish he would come storming right back right now.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I love that boy. But yeah, let's I don't know. But yeah, patreon.com/disenfranchpod. Check that out. Honestly, you can join free for 7 days right now. So go check that. That's a much longer plug for the Patreon than we ever do.
Doesn't matter. It was a good one. And I think it came from the heart.
It did. So yeah, this is our Mystery Men show. I hope you guys liked it. We had a good time, and God, I love this movie. We didn't do the fucking numbers.
You gotta do them, dude. I was wondering what you were doing. It's like, yes, do I want to wrap this up? Of course, but also we gotta run through them numbers because you know what?
Fucking work, Steven.
There's an unofficial and very underappreciated part of this podcast where Steven lists off the movies that were released or that were on the charts that week. And I, with no response from anyone else, just say something about each movie. And I say it's underappreciated because no one likes it, but I keep doing it.
You do.
So let's get to it, Steven. I'm excited to participate in this again.
In first place this week, brand new movie, the big hit, the third film, but the first big hit from a filmmaker we all love named Minaj Night Shyamalan, a little movie that you and I like to call The Sixth Sense. That is the #1 movie in the country this week, and it has made $26.7 million in its opening weekend. Great movie. In second place, one of the great indie hit, maybe the biggest profit margin of 1999, in one of the great horror movies of the late 90s.
It's Blair Witch, isn't it?
It's the Blair Witch Project. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was fake when I saw it because, the world was different then and you could fool people. and that made it all. I'm glad I was a fucking idiot, because that made it all the more scarier. It made it
Mm-hmm.
all the scarier. I can't do more and er at the same time.
All the more
Scared,
frightening.
scary, all the more scary. It's 2 syllables, so you do more. It's not the er. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
I would say all the more frightening, but yeah.
Whatever.
That movie in the 4 weeks of its release has made $80 million on its way to
Like
140.
60,000. It was made for like $60,000.
Yeah, like it was just such a fucking cheap ass movie.
What a fucking return.
Again,
man. That's
amazing.
like Halloween numbers, dude.
Yeah.
Original Halloween. Fucking A. That's
like
good
God,
for them.
Really? Not 600,000.
Oh, that's higher than I thought. I thought it was only about 60,000.
600,000 worldwide box office. The worldwide box office on that is 250 million.
Jeez,
that's over 400 times their production budget. Like,
I know.
God, what a return. In second place, hey, what happens if we get the stars of Pretty Woman back together to do another movie, dropping 3 places in its second weekend? It's Runaway Bride. What if the bride ran away?
They tried to do the whole like Sleepless in Seattle, You've Got Mail thing, and nah, like that only works if you're Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. Sorry.
Pretty much, yeah.
And even then, it doesn't really work that well, even though Steven saw that movie 6,000 times when he was a child.
You've Got Mail. Yeah, that was my sister's favorite movie for a while. So if I wanted to exist, then I had to watch that one with my sister. So yeah, and she watched it.
It was just happening all around you
incessantly. Like she would. I know I've told this. I know I've told this so many times. She would watch that movie, rewind it, and watch it again. Like one time, my dad came home from work after my sister had watched it literally all day, and she was like watching it. My dad's like, "Oh, I wanted to watch the news, but she's watching." I'm like, she's watched it like 6 times today. And my dad's like, "What?" By the time she was a freshman in high school, she'd seen that movie over 30 times. I love my sister, but good Lord.
That's a lot.
It is. In fourth place, one of the later films by the great John McTiernan, a movie that I have never seen, but I've heard is very good. The remake of the Thomas Crown Affair.
Oh, I didn't see that, but I worked at the movie theater when it came out, so I watched the credits a whole bunch while I was picking.
In fifth place, what many would agree is maybe the second best shark movie ever made. Samuel L. Jackson, Ladies Love Cool James, Deep Blue Sea. Deep Blue Sea at number 5. And then in sixth place, we get Mystery Men. Mystery Men opens to $10 million in its opening weekend. It would go on.
If it kept that momentum, it wouldn't have done bad. But I feel like people were testing the waters and nobody got it.
I mean, in its second weekend, it drops to 8. And then the weekend after that, it's down to 11. Like it kept dropping. But the weekend after that, it's 19. Like it just plummets like a stone.
I'm just saying, back then, in those times, you could have a shitty opening and come the fuck back. Like Scream got a second release. Like they re-released Scream. Because like the word of mouth hadn't caught up to it by the time it left theaters.
You know what else got a re-release?
Everybody wanted to fucking see it, and then it did gangbusters the second time they released it, like just a couple months later.
You know
word
what
of
else
mouth was a big thing back then.
You know what else got a re-release, and they were hoping for that similar kind of thing just last year. Morbius. Past episode of this podcast, Morbius.
Yeah, but Sony's stupid. Did they just heard that people were talking about it, or did they actually investigate what they were saying? Because if they did, what the fuck?
I think it was the first one.
You think? I mean, come on. If snakes on a plane have taught us anything, you can't bank on a meme. You can't fucking bank on a meme when it comes to releasing films. You just can't do it.
Mystery Men earns about just shy of $30 million.
Damn shame.
Domestic. It earns a little over, just about $4 million international, for a grand total worldwide box office of $33.5 million off of a $68 million production budget. I have also heard the LA Times reported, I think, that it was a $75 million budget, which may have been factoring in marketing, because the marketing for this movie was everywhere.
Or and even the reshoots with the ending and such.
Right. So like it was a very expensive movie, but it didn't
For the
make,
time,
and
yeah.
so right for the time it had a pretty big price tag. They were expecting to be a big old hit, and it wasn't. So yeah. Rounding out the rest of the top 10, in 7th place, you've got Matthew Broderick and Rupert Everett in Inspector Gadget from the Walt Disney Company.
I like that movie.
Makes sense.
Good.
In 8th place, you've got The Haunting, the DreamWorks film The Haunting.
I'll admit that this is a hot take, but I like that movie too. Like, and that's why I was kind of excited to see the new Haunted Mansion, because it's been a while since I've heard a wow inside of a haunted house.
Wow. Mater, wow. And then in 9th place, you've got maybe one of the last great hand-drawn animated films, The Iron Giant.
Oh, fuck yeah. I was just talking about that the other day with my coworker. We were talking about how Vin Diesel should do like more roles that challenge him instead of just him playing himself and making $1 bajillion.
That movie opened to $5.8 million. So not a great opening. That one does not do well. And then in 10th place, you've got American Pie, the original, which in its 5th week has already earned $85.5 million. And then, I mean, I'm going to keep going because 1999 is one of those all-time great movie years. I kind of want to shout out some others in this list. In 11th place, you've got Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. In its 12th week has earned over $400 million. Dick in 12th place, opening this weekend.
Can I tell you a real fun story? So I worked at the movie theater. I told you I worked at the movie theater when I was a youngster.
Yeah,
and
the movie theater.
The movie theater where they show the movies on the screen from the film, and
the one.
You get the popcorn and you have a good time.
Yeah.
I always got all the posters because nobody else wanted them because everybody else sucked. So I always got all the posters, and I had the poster to the film Dick with Dan Hedaya and Michelle Williams and Kirsten Dunst and all those motherfuckers. And I also had the poster for the first reboot of Shaft, starring Samuel L. Jackson.
Future episode of this podcast.
Until those posters met an untimely demise later in my life, I always placed them right next to each other because you always want to put your Dick next to your Shaft. And it was very wonderful. Both very different posters, very, very different. They clashed color-wise, theme-wise, but you can't waste a phallic reference, Stephen. You can't. Like, dicks are like farts. They're always funny. They're always funny. That's all I have to say about Dick.
But looks aren't everything.
And I do love that movie, too. I do love Dick. It is a really, really fun movie. And if you haven't seen it, you should totally watch it.
13, you've got the end of the Disney Renaissance, Tarzan. 14th, you've got one of my favorite Stanley Kubrick movies, Eyes Wide Shut. Hot take there. Well, teach their own. That movie fucking rules.
Exactly. That's why we're friends. I'm glad you get joy from that, Stephen. I'm very happy for you.
18, you've got Lake Placid. 19, Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. 20, future episode of this podcast, Wild Wild West. 22, one of my all-time favorite underrated comedies. Speaking of Kirsten Dunst, Drop Dead Gorgeous. You've got The Matrix still in theaters after 19 weeks at 24.
Of course it fucking is. It's 1999.
The Brendan Fraser Mummy at 27, South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut at 29, past episode of this podcast, Muppets from Space at 30, one of your favorite movies, Run Lola Run at 31. Like, this box office, I mean, again, that's how good a year this is we're down in the 30s and still hitting bangers. Like, 1999 is considered one of the great film years for a reason.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that the tomatometer score on this movie is a 60%.
Fuck
The
that.
critics' consensus.
Anything under a 97 is a crime against humanity. Please continue, Steve.
I mean, higher than I would have expected for critics on this movie, to be honest, though. Critics' consensus: absurd characters and quirky gags are brought to life by a talented cast providing the superhero spoof with lots of laughs. The Metascore is a 65 based on generally favorable reviews from 24 critics. And the Letterboxd score on this is a 3.0. Tucker, out of 5 stars, how many stars are you giving Kinka Usher's 1999 masterpiece, Mystery Men?
That's going to be a 5, Steven.
It's going to be a big same for me. This is absolutely a 5-star movie. This is a movie that I love.
We don't know how, but it's a 5-star movie.
I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me that this movie is 5 stars, but it absolutely is. And I love it so much. And I will always love it. And that's really all I have to say about that. Like, I think this movie fucking slaps. And I will stand for it till the day I die. That's pretty much all there is.
And I will stand there right next to you, Steven.
Right on.
Hand in hand.
Hand in hand to the end. And that, my friends, is our Mystery Men episode of the Disenfranchised Podcast. God, this has been a long one, but we warned you it probably would be. Again, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/disenfranchpod. Shoot us an email, disenfranchpod@gmail.com. Should Stephen watch Benny and June is this week's question. Shoot me an email. Let me know if you think I should. What else do we know? Oh, we do social medias. We're on all the social medias. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Facebook, YouTube, and Threads at Disenfranchpod.
The user interaction rate for Threads has dropped 80% since it came out.
That's not surprising. Look, after Twitter just became like, reskinned 4chan, I pretty much stopped using any social. Like, Twitter was my main social media. I was telling Tucker before we got started, I barely remember to update social media for this show half the time because I'm just on social media so little these days.
I mean, Twitter was a dumpster fire even before the current owner took over. So, like, I don't blame you.
It just, it took that disaster for me to finally haul ass out of there. But you can also check us out on your podcatcher of choice. And while you're there, the best way to support us, particularly if you don't want to spend any money, and if you've already spent money, I'm assuming you've already done this too. If you are spending money on the Patreon and haven't done this, get your life together, get your life right, and get on over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Sort your life out, mate.
And leave us a 5-star rating and review. That's going to help a lot of other people find this podcast because you and I both know that we're number 1 and all others are number 2 and lower. But we need you to convey that to the rest of the world so they can know that as well.
Also, the validation is nice.
It really is. And you know what? If you leave us a nice review, we might read it on the podcast. Who knows?
Maybe.
I'm not above such things. Same with emails. Send us an email. I might read it on the podcast. So
no, we absolutely will. If you send fan mail, or some straight up fan art, we're going to talk about it for a while. We're going to mention your name at least 3 or 4 times.
And the fan art will go up on our Instagram as well. And we will tag the hell out of you. So
the fan art will go on my wall. I will print that shit out and put it on my motherfucking wall. Bet. You can believe Tucker will slide into your DMs and give you his address so you can mail that shit to him. Bleed at.
You can find this Disenfranchised Podcast on all those platforms at Disenfranchised Pod. You can find me, your host, Stephen Foxworthy. Hi, hello, on Twitter, Instagram, fuck Twitter. I barely use that anymore. Instagram, Letterboxd, Threads, and Blue Sky. I'm on Blue Sky now at Chewy Walrus.
Nobody even knows what that is.
It's because they haven't been cool and gotten invited yet.
Oh, that's right. You got invited. I forgot you're part of the elite.
That's right. And usually people with a high degree of positivity. So I don't know what that says about me.
I don't belong on there.
No, you don't.
I bitch a lot.
You do. You really do. Look, Brett joined Threads recently and I was shocked.
Hey, look at that.
Yeah, you can find our good buddy Brett on Instagram, Letterboxd, and now Threads at sus_warlock. Tucker, what about you?
Of course, I'm still on the YouTubes at Ice909. That's ICENINE, the number 0 and the number 9. I also have an Instagram page called Tux Mugs. It's on Instagram at tuck_mugs. Give that page some love. We had both Brett and Steven have had guest mugs on the Instagram page, but this very last week we had our first actual fan guest mug.
Friend of the show, future guest Andy Greetings
And
dropped
it
that
was
for us.
glorious.
And
And I
it's a great
loved the
mug.
mug. I loved the story. It definitely fit the tone and the spirit of the Insta Scam page, if that's even a thing that an Insta Scam page can have. Uh, I thought it was wonderful, and I loved having the guest mug on there. It was wonderful, and everybody else on the hardworking staff at Tuck Mugs really just enjoyed seeing that and putting that post together. It
They
takes a
did.
lot
They
of
really
it takes
did.
a village. It takes a lot of hands and a lot of minds to put Tuck Mugs on InstaScam. It's a big operation. So, if you can, go buy Tuck Mugs and give us a follow, like some of our posts, and send us a guest mug. You can send your guest mug post, which would just be you'd follow the format of the page, which is to send a mug, tell us the story, the origin of the mug, if you will, and then tell us what you're drinking out of the mug, and just email that to disenfranchedpod at straight up gmail.com.
Or you
And
could also send it to us in DMs on Instagram. That also works.
you could, but emails are way cooler.
I'm just saying, you got options.
You got options, sure. But it's just like when you make a frozen dinner, the preferred method is email.
There you go. Well, it is almost 1 a.m. where you are, Tucker. So I'm going to land this plane because I know you got to work tomorrow. And you worked all day today. So
same as it ever was.
Same as it ever was. And look where my hand was.
I almost said that. We're friends, Steven. I don't know if you knew this, but we are friends. Steve.
We are friends. That is all we wrote for the Mystery Men, the long-awaited, long-time coming Mystery Men episode,
and long-winded
Mystery Men episode. It was so fucking great. I have been your host, Stephen Foxworthy, for my absent co-host Brett Wright and my present co-host Tucker. Until next time, frack you later, Frankenpusses.